emergency without even changing the terminology. You have soldiers there who are trained, who are in camp, but not necessarily part of police operations. I know that reserve soldiers were called out from the president. Thus far, we cannot speak to that as a success or whether or not it was successful at all in any way. But the point is, could the Defence Force be utilized without any of the proponents mentioned on Monday night?
I don't. We would have to look into it further for more detailed response. But certainly, putting the army out in the streets would require a state of emergency, because it would have implications on civil rights, and calling the army out in a civilian situation. It's an extraordinary situation as opposed to a normal policing. And the army personnel that are there right now, it's a limited number, first of all, and second of all, they are still under, as far as I am aware, they're still under the police umbrella, and they are assisting the police, rather than this being primarily a military operation with special ops that, whatever is needed to, say, destroy terrorist cells and monitoring and these sorts of things that the army has been trained for. This is what is needed. It's just like what we have said in the opposition, that customs, for example, needs to be moved from the Ministry of Finance to national security, because this is not a matter about making money on imports and exports. The most important thing is the illegal transshipment of drugs, of arms, of human trafficking. That's why customs needs to be shifted to national security. The crime situation has reached a level that is beyond crime. And our army, for example, we are not going to get into a war with Barbados or Grenada, etc. With Venezuela, our army will not be able to match up with Venezuela. We would need international assistance like Guyana is getting right now. But what our army needs to, and the way we need to think about our army and the use of our army, is not to fight a foreign country, but to fight foreign threats. Actually, the police are there for internal policing, and the army and defense is to defend the country. Now, these arms and this transnational drug trade, which fuels the crime, is transnational. And so we need to fight non-state actors, right? So our army needs to be deployed for non-state foreign threats, and this includes the arming of our local gangs and the international transshipment allies and networks. So it is actually quite appropriate for the army to be used in this context, because we have, because otherwise, in a sense, the army would be almost a waste of time if we only think about one country fighting another country. It's not about countries fighting each other. It needs to be deal with foreign threats, and this is where you get foreign transnational criminal organizations being identified by the army, because the police can't really do that. It's the army and Coast Guard, which we can upgrade to a Navy, for example. We've been discussing all these things in terms of upgrading our capability to deal with external threats, rather than have it the army as more or less a symbolic force. We need to deploy them against our actual external threats, which are these transnational crime networks.
Now, given the argument that the Trans-Tobago Defence Force focus on transnational organised crime, the TTPS focuses on domestic criminal acts and activity. Given our, climate, whether it be national security or the sense of our economics here in TNT, practically speaking, Suggestions are always easy. Implementation is always a bit more difficult. But do you genuinely believe that with all that we have at our disposal, the necessary resources to fully utilize the Defense Force, and even currently with the TTPS, is available or could easily be procured?
Well, absolutely. We are in partnership with the US, with the UK, with France. Because remember, the Caribbean is not just independent states. They are also, the British still have territories here. The French still have territories here. The Dutch as well. And they have their patrols. And the U.S. Virgin Islands also is part of the Caribbean. So they are also our Caribbean neighbors. And they are very much interested in clamping down on the exports which are going to their countries, right? And we have those partnerships in place. Certainly when the People's Partnership government was in power, we had a lot of these. We reactivated it because a lot of that went to sleep. And you talked about implementation, and that is absolutely true. And it is, statistically demonstrable, just an incontrovertible fact that when the PNM has been in office, crime has risen dramatically. We transformed into one of the most murderous societies on earth under the PNM. And every time, and both times, the UNC has got into power, it has decreased. And that's because of our implementation. And you can see it on everything from highway patrols to community comfort patrols, all sorts of aspects. The outfitting of GPS to police vehicles and body cams, CCTV. The PNM have fallen down, whether it is willingly or just incompetence. Whatever the reason, the fact is that they keep falling down on implementation, whether they want it like this or whether they just cannot, they just don't have the capacity. They have just proven over and over again to be failures. And both times that we've been in government, the UNC has shown that we have successfully implemented anti-crime policies, and we will do so again.
Mm-hmm. Now, let me go back to the actual proponent of a state of emergency, and I'm going to quote for you now from the Minister of Energy and Energy Industry, Stuart Young, and he's quoted as saying, but no one countered that, and he's referring to the state of emergency of 2011, no one countered that with the truth of what the 2011 state of emergency really was, the number of lawsuits that flowed through it, the illegality of it, etc. And those are the things we, the citizens, are counting on the media to remind us of and provide the truth to put aside all narratives that this cannot be supported. So, more or less, the minister has already poured cold water on it. It's most likely it's not going to receive support from the Minister of National Security or the Prime Minister. It's most likely, but let's wait to see what they say tomorrow night. As I said, there are mixed reactions to this, but what is your immediate response to Stuart Young's argument that 2011 state of emergency really was a disaster in the end?
It wasn't a disaster in the end because it brought down the crime rate while it was there, and Laventille and those areas were safe. What was the implementation problem was that charges were brought which were unnecessary during a state of emergency, and because the fact of the state of emergency alone, gave the powers for detention, and so the state of emergency did have the effect of reducing crime. The sort of the charges were another issue. That is not about the actual effect of the state of emergency. The state of emergency did bring it down, and combined with the military aspect, which is what we really need to deal with, because if you saw the crime talks, we had a Trinidadian who from the audience who spent many years abroad. I don't know if he was visiting here or what, but he was in the U.S. Army, and he was talking about all the weapons that they were supplied with as a soldier in the U.S. Army, and that this is what the gangsters have in Trinidad. So what we have are people who are militarily armed to the teeth with weapons that the U.S. Army has, and we cannot have the TT police service, the TTPS, is not equipped to deal with such an armed force. That is for our defense force, and to deploy them, I think the best way would be in a state of emergency. That would give them the latitude required to deal with this and to deal with it effectively. To have 12,000 of our soldiers against 2,000 gang members, and we will defeat them.
It's always amazing to me that in the position that I sit, we're always able to quote an estimate of how many gangsters there are in TNT or how many gangs there are in TNT. We're always able to say, well, these gangs exist and we know these gangsters. And oftentimes when someone is deceased, whether it be through some criminal act or whatever the case may be, it's often said, we were known to the police, they were known to be so-and-so, but these individuals are still out there. And I have question marks surrounding that all the time, because as far as I'm aware, it's illegal to be even associated with a gang. So I'm rather confused oftentimes, even in the position that I sit. But Dr. Mayhew, you know, let's be practical as well. Again, looking at this from an all-rounded perspective, it is a rather busy period for Trinidad and Tobago, and that is the carnival season. And oftentimes Trinity say, you could do anything, don't mess with my carnival. And it's also a very busy time for businesses, of which we will get reviews about after the carnival. But what is the most appropriate, or when is the most appropriate time rather, to implement a state of emergency? Do we wait until after carnival? Do we implement it now? Has that even been discussed?
We need a state of emergency as of yesterday. We cannot afford to have any more of our school children dying, being caught up by stray bullets in gang warfare, of women and bystanders in the street. And carnival cannot be an excuse. We cannot have this. We cannot have this excuse making. We cannot have this delay. That is the whole PNM strategy. That even these crime talks, everything is delay, 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 excuse, excuse, excuse. You know, you quoted Stuart Young. He's a failed Minister of National Security that had to be moved from there after we, if you remember, we had our motions of no confidence in him when he was in the Ministry of National Security, where he absolutely failed. And then they put someone worse, Fitzgerald Hines, just like when Faris El-Rawi was removed as Attorney General after our several motions and actions, and then Armour turned out to be even worse, which was unthinkable. But you know, it is mind-boggling to imagine that people would even contemplate putting off this, you know, dealing with crime, this murderous epidemic, this crisis we're facing because of carnival. That is people who do not want to solve the problem, and we have to just override that. That is absolutely unacceptable. This is something that needs to be dealt with immediately, right now.
Now, a surprise contributor to the conversation was retired Senior Superintendent Johnny Abraham, and well, he didn't hold back. He really had a go at the TTPS executive, and he's described it as leaderless, lacking vision, and it seems as though he felt extremely strong about you know, what's happening with the TTPS. What are your thoughts and opinions on the current situation there? Do you agree that the TTPS is leaderless, and the executive is very weak?
Well, I mean, the Trinidad, the police have not been able to grapple with the situation sufficiently. I think they need to be encouraged and congratulated for having a reduction in the murder rate. But this is despite the fact that they've been understaffed, underutilized. When you look at what they have in the police, and what they need in the police stations, it's incredible. They don't have, books, pens, papers, computers, toilet facilities, the most basic thing. How can you say you're serious about fighting crime when we treat our police officers like this? Even the wages given and what we offered as opposed to what the PNM has been offering, they are not. It's this is typical PNM, whether it be whatever it is, the service commissions, whether it be the police service. They just are always starving them of resources, and they cannot do their jobs. And then the people blame these institutions that are underfunded, right? So I don't think it is fully fair to blame the TTPS when it is the management of the TTPS, not even just the management echelon in the TTPS, but the state's management of it. So even in terms of the process needs to be reviewed, because there are questions about the appointment of the Commissioner of Police. And remember, Keith Rowley violated the Constitution by making the president withdraw the order of merit list produced by the Police Service Commission. So that whole process of appointing the Commissioner of Police was flawed, tampered with by the PNM. It is being mismanaged, just like the Integrity Commission, being underfunded, and then people blame the Integrity Commission for not doing their jobs. This is it's typical PNM, and they always want to blame people below them when it is the buck stops with them. And so we are blaming the PNM, the government, because just like when we were in government, we made sure that things were done. The PNM will always have some excuse. The Minister of National Security himself will say that he is not responsible for people feeling safe. This is absolutely unacceptable, and if we have self-worth as a society, we would never, ever accept that from a minister.
Dr. Mayu, how many ministers of national security did the People's Partnership have when they were in government?
I believe it might have been 4 or 5,
yeah.
And it was very effective.
But when all is said and done, how is the United National Congress and the National Transformation Alliance, what would they utilize as a measure of success for these talks? I mean, conversation is good, action is best. As I said, when all is said and done, yes, it's already caused a lot of debate. Even business owners or heads of business chambers have spoken about suggestions on Monday night, political analysts as well. But what would you measure as really being the success following these meetings?
Well, the first success is that we kicked the PNM in the behinds, so that now they are actually going to have a public consultation tomorrow, right? So that's the first thing. If the PNM start to deal with this, because we have finally lit a fire under them, well, that is a success. But the greatest success would be for us to get rid of these incompetent, corrupt people in the PNM and put in a government that will do the job. But in the meanwhile, we will be compiling our suggestions, and we will be presenting them to the public, to the government as well. And if they implement it, and if our crime statistics go down, because that in the end, the success is for a reduction in the crime. That's what we want to see. We want to see our country pulled back from this terrible, terrible crisis, and we will do whatever it
Any
takes.
chance of crime talks between the opposition leader and the cabinet, with or without the Prime Minister? Could that happen still?
It can happen, but without the head of the National Security Council, it just shows, and then putting in people like Marvin Gonzalez, that makes absolutely no sense. It is spitting in the face of the citizenry. It is disrespectful. It is showing that they do not have a care in the world, that they do not treat this seriously. We need a serious approach, and also they keep changing the terms all the time. Right? We are always open to talks, but the government and the PNM needs to be serious, and they need to take this seriously. And I think they are finally seeing, and they're seeing how important it is. When you saw the crowd at La Jolla, in terms of the spread of ages, all different walks of life, men, women, races, income groups, everything. It was overflowing. We didn't expect so many people to come out. We had to apologize. I mean, I personally had to go out and apologize to the people who couldn't get let in because of fire regulations. And so, we had, it was overflowing into the streets, in fact. The people are desperate, and so many people were so disappointed that they couldn't come to share, because, I mean, if you saw the front page of the Express today, one couple whose daughter had been missing for 6 years, they haven't even got the DNA test results. How many times have we in the opposition talked about, push for the government to start up and improve our DNA testing facilities, and the government just does nothing. After 9 years, they've done nothing, and they just don't care.
Dr. Mew, we are over time this morning, but sorry to have to cut you, but thank you very much nevertheless for joining me on the program, and we all await to hear the Prime Minister and the Minister of National Security tomorrow night in San Juan. But again, thank you for making yourself available, and thank you for the time this morning. Well, all the best in the year ahead. We look forward to the next conversation.
It's my pleasure, and I look forward to speaking to you and your viewers more in this new year.
Thank you so much, too. All the best to you. Take care. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Kirk Mew, the Public Relations Officer of the United National Congress, joining me on AM Prime this morning. Now, we've had the opposition's say. We've heard from the political leader, and we've also heard from the political leader of the National Transformation Alliance. We've heard from retired Senior Superintendent Johnny Abraham and a host of other individuals. And thank you to Dr. Kirk Mew for really expressing his point of view this morning and the point of views of the United National Congress. And need I say, in many instances, that of the citizenry, the population of Trinidad and Tobago. However, I look forward to what is to be told to us tomorrow night by the Honourable Prime Minister and Minister of National Security at their town hall meeting in San Juan. And when that is really announced or revealed to the public, I look forward to welcoming a member of Cabinet to further discuss and debate the suggestions put forward and the government's side of this entire, what can be deemed as intervention measures. So we welcome them to the program to have their say and their contribution as well. We take a break here on AM Prime, and when we return, we get into some more conversations. We'll be right back.
Like many others trying to save on Carnival, Gabby thought she should go for 50% off makeup. Well, that is 50% off offer. So, you know.
No makeup artist we don't know. What we do know is the savviest savings for Carnival are at KFC. Get a Jab Jab box, 1-piece chicken, 1 regular fries, and a biscuit for only $25.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers?
Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best.
I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw.
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
Weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in-depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having this a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WESN,
the content capital.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing now, Andy.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go there and rep the right and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
Welcome back to the program, ladies and gentlemen. Now we're switching gears a bit this morning as we're speaking about a very interesting story in regards to healthcare here in Trinidad and Tobago. And it's a cutting-edge procedure as it relates to the treatment of thyroid malignancy. And it is in regard to thermal ablation technology. Most recently, this procedure was performed on a 33-year-old female patient. She actually requested information in regards to non-surgical alternatives, to which Dr. Ashton Ramsunir became part of a medical team that includes Drs. Solomon Juman and Dr. Nicholas Figaro. Now, just to give you some information on Dr. Ashton Ramsunir, he recently returned to Trinidad and Tobago following his fellowship in vascular and interventional radiology at the esteemed Singapore General Hospital, and he has had the privilege of training in interventional oncology, a subdivision of interventional radiology that treats with oncological diseases, among other innovative modalities. So, he's with us this morning. He's with us via the telephone to speak further on this groundbreaking procedure. Good morning, Dr. Ramsunir, and thank you so much for joining me on the program.
Good morning.
Well, Dr. Ramsunir, before we begin, could you just speak to us about the actual disease itself, thyroid malignancy, and precisely what it is?
So, just to correct you, it's only for select cases for thyroid malignancy. So essentially, the procedure for thermal ablation in the thyroid is well documented for benign nodules, benign meaning non-cancerous. Now, as of recently, they have been starting treatments for certain types of thyroid malignancies, but not all thyroid malignancies. And it's when we are treating thyroid malignancies, it's of a certain size, very early ones. So actually, prior to us doing a thyroid ablation, we need to biopsy the thyroid gland to ensure that the nodule is benign. It's one of the requisites prior to thermal ablation. So it's for benign nodules, large benign nodules, where patients opt for or have contraindications to surgery.
Well, this is most interesting that this non-surgical alternative thermal ablation technology, and specifically a microwave ablation procedure, What is this technology? What is microwave ablation procedure? What is it exactly?
Right. So it's very new. So I actually didn't know about this until I went across to Singapore during my fellowship. And what it entails is you're heating the cells of whatever lesion you're targeting. And when you apply heat above 40 degrees Celsius, they destroy cells, permanently destroy cells. So thermal ablation, that's thermal ablation in a nutshell, and microwave ablation is one of the subsets of thermal ablation. So the one that was very popular, the first one, the one that started the ball rolling, was actually radio frequency ablation. And the difference between all the different types of thermal ablation are the type of energies that they're using. So radio frequency would use like a current, oscillating current, to provide, to heat the electrode, and that would provide the right temperature to be in the nodules or whatever tissue you're targeting. Microwave actually uses, well, obviously microwave energy to heat the electrode as well for the burning of the tissues. So again, it's targeted, meaning that we use image guidance. Image guidance meaning ultrasound or CT, sometimes MRI, and that's where the interventional radiology comes in. So intervention, what we're doing is a new field called interventional oncology, where it combines cancer treatment, which is everyone knows as oncology, and then there's interventional radiology, whereby you do minimally invasive procedures. So that's where you get the combination of interventional oncology. So the placement of the needle is directed. For this one, we use ultrasound, and we get into the lesion that we want, and then we just burn it. And it's as simple as that.
Well, it's simple, but is a patient put under anesthetic, or are they fully awake during this procedure?
So for thermal ablation, we can use it for the thyroid, the liver, the kidney, and the lung. For the thyroid gland, we actually do it while the patient is awake. We do it under local anesthetic, but for the other organs, we have to put the patient to sleep for pain management. But for the thyroid gland, the pain management is actually done with local anesthetic, and we have very, very favorable outcomes.
Mm-hmm. Now, beyond this, though, what about the recovery time following a procedure such as this?
Yeah, so these thyroid ablations, we actually discharge the patient the same day unless there's a complication. But yeah, within a couple hours, once the local anesthetic wears off, the patient doesn't have any significant pain or swelling, any difficulty swallowing, because again, we're in the region of the trachea and the esophagus. So no problems breathing, no problems swallowing. We discharge the patient same day, later on that day.
That is incredible. Now, something rather concerning, though, is previously the use of electric pads. Now, it's a bit different when inserting a needle and heating the needle, as you said, more or less to really burn the cells. But could this affect any individual whatsoever who may have implants or for example, devices that help with heart care, implantable cardiac devices, that is?
Right. So the reason for microwave, again, it's a subset of the different types of thermal ablation. And what people realized was, because for the other type of modalities or types of ablation, the radio frequency in particular, they had issues. They couldn't do it because, remember, it's the electric current running through the body, and that would affect other implantable devices that use electricity in the body. So those patients were not eligible for anything radio frequency related. So that's why microwave is safe for these patients, because there's no current being applied to the body.
Mm-hmm. Now, you've described this as groundbreaking technology. Why is this groundbreaking for Trinidad and Tobago specifically, or generally in the medical field?
Right. So microwave ablation, I believe it is available in the private sector, but not for they didn't do any. As far as I know, it wasn't done on the thyroid gland. There is also radio frequency available in the private sector, but this was the first procedure done in the public sector.
Mm-hmm. Oh, the first in the public sector.
Yes,
is incredible.
It is in the public sector.
So then let me go back to something you said earlier. You said on select cases. Could you just expand on that a bit? How do you go about selecting the most appropriate case or the most appropriate patient to receive this particular treatment?
So when patients present to me for treatment, it's not where you can just be like, oh, I want to go do this procedure. I look for Dr. Amson, I call him, I go into his office, I see him, or go to the hospital, see him, and do the procedure. It doesn't work like that. You actually have to be discussed amongst a team of doctors and indicate your suitability for the procedure, meaning that microwave ablation and ablation of any nodule, whether it be thyroid or of the other organs, it needs to have a multidisciplinary approach, meaning that all different doctors from different modalities need to give their input. Secondly, there are different types of treatment for the same condition. So thyroid nodules specifically, if there's a large thyroid nodule or multiple thyroid nodules that are causing the patient some difficulty, the first line management or the go-to management is actually surgery. So in the event that the patient is not suitable for surgery for whatever reason, they may have an allergic reaction to the anesthetic, or due to religious reasons, they can't receive blood transfusions and all of these things. Then the patient will, again, seek alternative options other than surgery, which could be medical management, or it could end up by me, where we offer this type of treatment for the cases that cannot undergo surgery or do not want surgery. So it's a case-by-case basis. There are criteria that we have to follow as to what patients we select, but at the end of the day, it's a case-by-case basis. We assess each patient individually and choose their suitability for the procedure.
Mm-hmm. You've also been quoted as saying that this treatment actually holds promise in the broader context of cancer care all around.
It's what, sorry? I didn't catch you last.
You're quoted as saying that this treatment actually holds promise in the broader context of cancer care.
Right, yes. So, as I said, interventional oncology. So, one of the known microwave is known for, what's renowned for is actually for HCC, which is a type of liver cancer. It's treatment for metastatic disease with colorectal cancer and another type of cancer called neuroendocrine tumor, when these lesions go to the liver. So it's well documented, well researched. It's a known treatment for metastatic liver lesions that have, for some reason, not responded to the normal chemotherapy, or the patient is unable for surgical resection. They come for liver ablation. So when I stated that in the broader context of oncological care, it's for these lesions that are basically, there's stubborn lesions when you're dealing with cancer, Mm-hmm. Everything else is working, but for some reason there are certain lesions which refuse to respond to the treatment that is being given. This is where ablation comes into play.
Well, Dr. Ramsden, I want to thank you so much for your time this morning and really to enlighten us and educate us on this particular procedure and treatment. But also,
sure, no problem, my pleasure.
Also, I understand that you generously donated your microwave ablation machine and consumables for the particular procedure on the 33-year-old lady. So thank you so much for your generosity in that regard as well. Certainly appreciate it.
Yes, it was my pleasure. My pleasure.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Ramsunar, and we look forward to the next conversation because there's a lot more we can speak about in regards to oncology and healthcare. But for now, we're just going to have to pause. Thank you so much, sir.
Definitely, okay.
Take care. All the best. Dr. Ashton Ramsunar joining me on AM Prime this morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's always good to share. I'm always delighted and happy to share in some good news, and certainly is a groundbreaking procedure. And Dr. Ramsunar really was generous to donate his machine for the procedure. So, ladies and gentlemen, some good news all around, and we hope that, such trends do continue. We're going to take a break here on AM Prime. When we return, it's Wild Wednesday. I wonder what's next. What animal are they bringing this morning? I think we'll all be a bit surprised when we return after this.
Here is the WESN News on the Hour. I am Sarah Ali. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Retired senior superintendent criticizes police administration. Tobago secures participation in upcoming carnival season. Minister Donna Cox meets with FCB to enhance support for vulnerable citizens. Regionally, a 10-year-old child bitten by a shark in the Bahamas. Now for the details. The current police service administration is facing criticism for being labeled as leaderless and ineffective in combating crime, according to retired senior superintendent Johnny Abraham. Speaking at the UNC's anti-crime town hall meeting at the La Jolla Auditorium in St. Joseph, Abraham expressed concerns about the lack of effective leadership within the police force. He attributed this perceived deficiency to individuals being promoted based on personal connections rather than merit. Abraham accused the current generation of police leaders of failing to motivate their subordinates to confront criminals.
Because some persons went and get elevated because of friendship, because of clique. Correct. I used to lock down Central Division with 5 vehicles. One Sentinel Junction, one by the roundabout Carey, one crossing by the fish market, one on the highway crossing there. You can't come in from north, you can't come from south, you can't come from the east. The thing about the whole police service now is that people afraid to take the challenge to the criminals. If you don't have a leader, you can't follow us. And there's all proper security in a country, you can't have no investment.
The Secretary of Tourism, Culture, Antiquities and Transportation in the Tobago House of Assembly has announced Tobago's participation in the upcoming carnival season. Addressing concerns surrounding the island's involvement, Secretary Tasha Boris assured that the planning and execution of Tobago's carnival festivities in February are in their final stages. The Tobago Festivals Commission is actively collaborating with various stakeholders to ensure a successful event. Boris mentioned that discussions are ongoing to determine the extent of support for the carnival. She recalled last year's comprehensive statement by the Chief Secretary outlining the strategic direction for handling February Carnival in contrast to Tobago's October Carnival. The final decisions are still being deliberated as the authorities work towards ensuring a well-organized and enjoyable celebration. In a concerted effort to prioritize the needs of clients, Senator Donna Cox, Minister of Social Development and Family Services, convened a meeting with key representatives of First Citizens Bank on Monday, January 15th. The aim of the discussion was to chart the course for the fiscal year, ensuring a streamlined and supportive environment for vulnerable citizens. The meeting, held at the ministry's head office in Port of Spain, saw the participation of Permanent Secretaries Lenore Baptiste Simmons and Ryan Ramcharan, Deputy Permanent Secretary Wendy Guy Hernandez, with representatives from First Citizens Bank, including Group Chief Executive Officer Karen Darbasi. Central to the agenda were deliberations on overcoming recent technical challenges associated with the 2023 Christmas food card distribution. The collaborative dialogue focused on fostering an environment that facilitates the ease of doing business for the benefit of those in need. In regional news, a 10-year-old boy bitten by a shark in the Bahamas on Monday is now reported to be in stable condition at a local hospital. The Royal Bahamas Police Force issued a medical statement providing details on the incident. The child, who hails from Maryland, was partaking in a shark tank expedition at a resort on Paradise Island just before 4 p.m. when the shark bite occurred. The incident resulted in a bite to the boy's right leg. Swift action by officials ensured the child was promptly transported to the hospital, where he is currently receiving medical attention. Well, that's it. News on the hour on WESN. I am Sira Ali. Thank you for watching.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
My name is Carl Media, and I'm the founder and the host of Ever Increasing Voice Ministries. Join me every Saturday and Sunday on WESN, this powerful station, at 9 a.m. on Saturdays, 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. nightly. Also on Sundays, I'll be on at 7 a.m., 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. at night time. When you come here, we are getting people heavenly ready.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Sight, Thursdays at 11:30 a.m. only on WESN, Content Capital.
Welcome back to the program, ladies and gentlemen, and you are seeing in my hand our first guest on the program this morning. And boy, oh boy, I mean, I'm in awe. This is a green boar. And they spoke about it last week on the program. This is just a baby, because from what I understand, we have a couple more guests to welcome shortly. But in the meantime, it gives me great pleasure to introduce a new individual from the El Socorro Center for Wildlife Conservation, Mr. Jeremy Lewis. He's right next to me. Good morning, Jeremy. Welcome to the program.
Hey, morning. Nice to be here.
Well, thanks so much. And a familiar face, the resident Rasta conservationist.
Good morning.
Jeremy Beach, how are you doing, brother? Happy New Year to both of you.
Happy New Year.
Thanks so much. So, I've got a green boar in my hand. Last week I had a mackerel, and I was really fascinated with pure muscle. This guy, as a baby, seems a lot more powerful, just holding him in my hand. He's a lot more curious as well.
Yes, that's one of the most powerful snakes you could ever handle. It's the largest snake you'll find in the world. The largest one was recorded by National Geographic was like 550 pounds.
550 pounds?
Yeah.
And that's just the one that was captured and recorded?
Yes.
So they're probably a lot bigger out there?
Yep.
How big, in terms of length, do these animals, well, approximately what we know could get to?
That particular specimen was 24 feet.
24 feet?
It's based on National Geographic. I know, with regards to the weight, it is skeptical because of the fact that the animal could have just fed, just had something to eat. So, you know, I would be a little skeptical about it because that's a massive specimen. Smaller than that was the one that we found in Trinidad here in Caroni that was 17 feet and just about 200 pounds.
Bloody hell. Those exist. And no, we're not speaking about movies, we're speaking about actual snakes. Jeremy, this guy is a baby. Yeah. How old, no, I have to be more specific. When I say Jeremy, how old is he?
He's approximately 2 years and approaching 3 years old, right? Again, as you said, the muscle, the strength that he possesses compared to the red-tailed boa is a lot greater even at this age.
Yes.
Pound for pound, he's a lot stronger than his cousins, his other counterparts, and but these animals, and they are known for their power, their size, right? So they are not to be, taken lightly in a sense. Yeah.
Not at all. Even though I'm handling him right now, and he seems to be very settled and calm.
Yeah.
Even I, with those muscles around my fingers, I wouldn't lie, I'm a bit nervous. But because another amazing aspect is the eyes, which was so different to what we saw last week. What really is the purpose of those eyes on the snake?
So the green anaconda is a water-dwelling species of snake, yeah? Right, so you typically find them in marshes and swamps, etc. Now, being water-dwelling, they have eyes on top of their heads, and if you also notice, his nostrils are located on top of his head.
Oh yes, yeah.
They submerge their bodies, and they just leave just their nostrils and their eyes out, just at the surface of the water, to look for oncoming prey. They are ambush predators, so they sit and they wait for any prey to come close to them, and then they strike. But that is why they have that adaptation to be able to survive in the water where they spend most of their time.
Jeremy, exactly how do these snakes hunt?
They are ambush predators. So they will be at the water's edge. They will take fish in the water. They would wait for birds coming in. A smaller specimen as such will mainly feed on birds and rodents, small rodents. When we get to the larger ones, they will take the large caimans. They will take...
Caimans?
Yeah, they will eat caimans.
They would tackle a caiman.
An anaconda is an apex predator. They will eat anything and everything, even including other anacondas.
Yeah. Also, the larger species could actually go after this guy.
Yes.
Wow, that is...
Mostly
that's pretty good news for you, but you're okay this morning.
Mostly during mating, the female would eat the male after, in most cases.
What is it in the animal kingdom with that, man? Really?
They need nourishment. Most of the times females, and they after successfully breeding, they're tired, so they need nourishment. And the closest thing to them is the male, so, they take on the male.
One thing we could be grateful for in human beings. But, yeah, because you hear about that in when it comes to praying mantis, when it comes to spiders. Wow, I didn't even realize that happens with the snakes as well.
Yeah.
So animals, well, they always say it's driven by nature and it's always to reproduce. So a male will reproduce and give up its life afterwards for the sake of, well, this guy being born.
Essentially, yeah.
I think that's the best way to put it. But I'm also noticing that he's calm now, so he's not flickering his tongue as he was before. But what was he doing? I often hear that's just tasting the air. Is that true?
So yeah, so snakes and how they perceive the world is a lot different to us, right? They use that tongue, and what that tongue does is it picks up scent particles in the air. They have an organ located into the roof of their mouth called the Jacobson's organ. And it goes back there and sends a signal to the brain as to what is around me. Is it food? Is it a person? So he was basically scanning this entire room just from on your hand. So he could tell, the kind of cologne or cream that you have on, etc. And he collects all of that data to essentially say, okay, where am I at? Is there any food around? Is there a water source around? So that is how they collect their data in the environment.
Wow, that is absolutely incredible. When was the last time he ate?
A week and a half ago, yeah.
I'm safe, right?
Yeah. Nah, you're good. Yeah, you're not on the menu.
I know I may seem a bit bigger than him, but I feel like he's like, I have muscle over here, so. All right, so I'll tell you what, let's take a quick break here on the program. And when we return, we're going to welcome the bigger guest that both Jeremys 1 and 2, they're going to be dealing with this morning. I think I'm fine with this guy, and let them deal with the rest. We'll be right back after this.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers?
Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best. I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw.
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
Weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in-depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having this a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WESN,
the content capital.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Sight, Thursdays at 11:30 a.m. only on WESN, Content Capital.
The newest book is here, Closer to the Church, the debut novel by author and former mayor Louis Lee Singh. Available at all the home store branches, Barataria, West Mall, Shogunas, and C3 San Fernando. Paper-based bookshop 10 Nook Avenue, St. Anne's, WESN 30A Gattaca Street, Woodbrook. Metropolitan Bookshop, Ariapita Avenue, Woodbrook, and all RIK bookstores nationwide. Available online as paperback on Amazon.com and Kindle for e-readers. For more info, call 628-5835 or 389-6504. Also available from author Louis Lee Singh, I Used to Live in Heaven, Letters to My Granddaughters, and Local Government in Trinidad, Conspiracy Against the People.
Alright, well guys, thanks for staying with us, because you see this guy I have in my hand? Yeah, I'm being absolutely still with him. But take a look at what the two Jeremys have with them this morning. Guys, get a shot of this. And this is where the holy crap comes out. Alright, Jeremy Lewis, you've got an anaconda with you, a green anaconda as well. Yeah. A lot smaller than what Jeremy Bejan has, but tell me about the snake that you've got with you.
So this is a male green anaconda, right? Now, most of us have seen the movies, we've heard about these quote-unquote man-eating snakes, but usually when you see those videos or pictures of those giant anacondas, especially like what Jeremy has there, the next Jeremy has there, right? The females are the ones that push the incredible size. Males, on average, will get to about, let's say, 10, 15 feet max. Females are the ones that could push to 20, 22, and even possibly make it up to 30, with the right diet and environment and whatnot.
These snakes seem really active. Look at that. That is an incredible shot. Jeremy, why is she so active? I mean, I know it's a bit of a different, but look at that. That's just the muscle at work. Get a shot at Jeremy. Don't get me. Go back to Jeremy. Look at what he's got. They're trying so hard to get it. They can't get it because of how tall. That is, wow. And that's just pure muscle work. They're just able to, I guess, more or less stand just like that.
Yes, correct, yeah.
So then, Jeremy, what about the skeleton of these snakes? I mean...
Now you will see this large specimen here and you will assume she's very, girthy. She's girthy, she's strong, there's pure muscle. But the skeleton system is quite fragile. Hence the reason you'll find them want to be submerged at all times, at most times, I would say.
I think she also wants to be very close to the meal.
Yeah, she just wants to do her own thing. Yeah, the skeleton systems, what actually supports this body is fragile. That's why we have to be very careful when handling these animals. It's easier to break ribs and stuff like that.
Oh, really?
And because of the sheer size, hence the reason they like to be submerged. It's easier for them.
I don't think you're going to get this on any other morning program, ladies and gentlemen. I really don't think so, because I asked you, when was the last time this guy fed? It's amazing how he's able to turn his head, but his eyes as well, the movement of his eyes as well. When was the last time those guys had a meal? In fact, what did they eat the last time you guys fed them?
The last time this one ate, this was a small pig, this snake had. The pig probably was about 3 weeks old, and this one had just about 5 rats, large rats.
5 large rats. And when you're feeding them, is it live feeding?
Yes, I will do live feeding, mainly because I like to capture maintain the wild instincts of the animal. They enjoy the pursuit and suffocating of the animal and the asphyxiation.
So, are you guys okay there?
Yeah, we're fine.
So one of the things that I learned last week as well is a snake and their body temperatures. Now, as you mentioned, these snakes tend to be in water a lot. Is that also, apart from, their fragile skeletons or even predators that can come from above, whatever predators really care to take on both of those snakes, is it also to maintain body temperature?
So not necessarily. Now, anacondas, each snake is different, and each snake requires different temperatures and humidity, etc. The anaconda could survive in some colder temperatures, yeah?
Really?
Right? Because again, it's a water-dwelling snake, so the water temperature will be a lot cooler, right, than the ambient temperature of like the rainforest. So they could survive in colder temperatures just for a bit, right? But yes, they will also use the water as a form of thermoregulation. So if they are on land and they're basking and they get too warm, they can retreat to the water to cool down and thermoregulate that way.
Now, what predators, this guy is obviously more susceptible to predators, but do you think there are any other predators that go after, like the male, for example?
In terms of when they reach this size, no, the predator, the amount of animals that could actually eat them lessens.
Take them on.
In Trinidad, by the time they get to this size, probably a caiman could probably eat a guy like this if he's lucky, right? But by the time they reach his size and bigger, there's nothing really on the food chain except man that could actually, do them harm.
Yeah, humans is one of the #1 predators of these animals. As many persons would eat snakes, they would eat anacondas, as well as the part where they'll see a snake and just kill it.
Are they all speaking to each other, the flickering of the tongues?
Nah.
Now, apart from all of this, she's really active, he's really active, you are a bit more active now. Handling these snakes, you guys seem to be, I know you have experience, but you seem to be very fearless.
No, this one in particular didn't start off this way. She has, I probably got bit from her about 4 times.
Really?
Just trying to calm her down. She was rescued from someone who decided they wanted to keep an anaconda that was about 10 years ago. It probably was about the size of the one you have in your hand there. And as she got older, they quickly realized that they could not manage the snake. It was an older guy, and he could tell by the strength of the snake that he could manage. He never touched the snake. He had it in an enclosure. He would just wash down, and he wouldn't touch it.
Yeah, but that's, wouldn't that make him more prey than anything else?
Exactly. He was totally scared of this animal. And he called the center and decided to donate it to the center.
Are those cases you guys see often where people want to handle snakes but they just can't?
All the time. Persons would always want to get things like monkeys and macaws, not considering the work that goes into a monkey, not considering the noise that comes from a macaw or even a parrot. And in this case, not considering the size that the snake will get at after a few years.
Yeah.
And the power, the muscles on the snake is tremendous. This could easily crush bone. You get this around your neck, you're going to pass out.
What about him? He can also take out a human being, if you really wanted to.
Oh, yeah. Again, they're very strong. As you mentioned earlier, just compared to the power of that little guy, imagine the power of this guy, and then imagine the power of this big girl here. And keep in mind, she can get bigger, you know. So
would he get bigger? Or this is probably the largest he will get?
Yeah, that's just about
the largest. He may get a little longer as the years go by, but it will be very slow growth. Snakes don't actually stop growing, but when they do reach maturity, the growth just slows down significantly.
And how often do they shed?
It depends. I guess he will shed every few months. Yeah?
I would say it's based on how you feed the animal. The more you feed him, the faster he'll grow. So
how often? Sorry. How often would you feed these guys to?
I would say every 2 weeks or so, based on the size of what I fed the last time.
So it's just about dinner time then.
What's a week again?
But what about noise? Do these guys make any noise at all? Any hissing? Any?
Yeah, you'll get a slight hiss from if you listen carefully. You'll hear her hissing right now.
Oh, I thought that was actually just her on the counter that I was hearing. Yes, really, I'm hearing the hiss. I'm hearing the hiss. Yeah.
Really, actually, I don't think it's she hissing right now because I don't think she's angry. They will hiss when they're angry. She's just exhaling. It's just her exhaling. She's just breathing.
How long are these guys able to hold their breath for underwater? Because they breathe oxygen, they breathe air, so...
So they could hold their breath for up to like 30 minutes at a time, yeah. Right? Sometimes they will even, when they kill prey and they're underwater, they will squeeze and kill the prey underwater, swallow it
drown the prey as well?
Yeah, swallow it underwater as well. But anywhere from 10 to 30 minutes underwater.
Wow. But they don't close their eyes at all, right? So then, how do you know when a snake is resting?
Typically after, it's almost as though it's like a guess, but they tend to be very still. You get no flickering of the tongue, right? And they will be coiled up, and they just look very, very relaxed. You barely see any kind of movement from them or anything like that.
Now, typically across Trinidad, you're not going to see these guys in urban forested areas, more so swampland that you see these guys.
More so swampland, so yeah, no, you're not going to get them in urban forested areas. Matter of fact, many people don't even know we have these creatures in Trinidad because they've never seen them before. They're very good at hiding. They don't want to have to interact with people at all. But yeah, again, they would be in more marshy areas, swamp areas, and close to the forest edge, but near bodies of water, slow-moving bodies of water.
Are there, if you were to come across one, for whatever reason, what is the best thing to do?
First of all, that is very rare. You will hardly find these guys. They will see you before you see them. And if you notice, as we mentioned before, the eyes and the nostrils are just on top of the head. So this large snake will be in a body of water, but you'll only see an inch of the snake, which is just the eyes and the nostrils. His entire body will be submerged. And most of the time, his marshes is like blackish water they will be in. So that snake will just dip under as you pass in and disappear completely. However, if you do encounter one of these, they will be close to water, and as soon as the snake sees you, he will dive straight inside of there.
Yeah, as you said, nothing. He wants to have
He
nothing,
wants
to, do
nothing to do with you. You don't see humans as prey, so they don't have time. They want to get away.
Now, guys, when all is said and done, I really champion you all for really handling these snakes. I think it's amazing, the work that you all do. But the fact that we're able to have these programs and even you guys volunteering your time and bringing these incredible creatures, and I cannot understate, I cannot overstate how powerful these guys are. I see your feeling is a little bit there because he's wrapped himself up under the desk.
Correct, and he's...
Oh, yeah. Oh, it takes a lot of muscle and strength to deal with these guys. But I tell you what, it's amazing news you're getting this morning. And ladies and gentlemen, please do not get animals that you cannot handle. This guy, I'm okay with. I'm not good with those guys. But Jeremy Lewis, Jeremy Bachon, thanks so much for your time this morning, for your effort, for your energy. And I now understand why you guys work out as much as you do. Right, so I know that Ricardo is not here, but I realized that he wasn't joking when he said he was sending green boas.
Yeah.
So my regards to him. And well, he's not here, so you guys come back next week with something. If you all are available,
Yeah, of course, of course.
But ladies and gentlemen, it's been another incredible Wild Wednesday. I'm Keaton Shaw, and from my good friend here, well, they had Car the Constrictor. I think we could call you Car as well. We bid you a great day ahead, a safe one, an enjoyable one, and just remember, always make it a wild one. See you later, guys. Bye-bye.
WESN.
I'm Andy Johnson, and you're watching WESN, the content capital.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Join me, Dr. Nalini Kokram, on What's Up Doc, where we discuss all your burning questions concerning health.
Trinidad and Tobago is among one of the highest risk group of patients that develop this form of genetic breast cancer.
What I'd like to take home from a short interview like this, screening. You must screen.
Because it's silent.
It's silent.
Yeah.
And because it's silent, you don't know it's there.
What's Up Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers?
Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best. I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw.
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
Weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in-depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having this a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WESN,
the content capital.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Ran away. At the moment of the explosion, I grabbed my son and we ran.
Russia says that it averted another attack against the border town of Belgorod.
Meanwhile, anti-corruption activists in Ukraine are demanding the government react to alleged intimidation of high-profile journalists. 2 incidents this week have drawn attention to the issue, and we're going to talk more about that with our correspondent Gulliver Cragg in Kyiv. Gulliver, give us the details.
So the first incident was on Sunday when unknown men came to the home of Yuri Nikolov, who's one of the most famous anti-corruption journalists in Ukraine. At the beginning of last year, he unveiled a very big scandal about corruption with food purchases for the military. He wasn't at home at the time. His ailing mother was there. They behaved in a threatening way and they left messages on the door sign saying he's a provocateur and saying he should join the army. In fact, he's not eligible for military service precisely because he's looking after his elderly mother. And then just yesterday there was a video published of cameramen employed by the anti-corruption investigative media Bigus Info apparently taking drugs at a New Year's party. Now the media has not denied that they were indeed taking drugs, and they don't say that it was a plant. They have fired the relevant people, but what's worrying them is that in order to get this video and this information, it was clear that the people concerned and perhaps other employees of the channel were under surveillance. Their phones were being tapped for months. And I spoke earlier to Max Opasenko, one of the editors-in-chief of Bigus Info. He said they're used to their phones being tapped in order to try to get information about their work, what they're investigating on. But this is something different because there was a clear intent to find some dirt on some employees of the channel's private life and to discredit them in that way. And people are up in arms about this because Ukraine prides itself on the freedom of its media. It's one of the main arguments that the country has to say that it is fighting corruption, that it is a democracy, and those kinds of things are supposed to happen in Russia or in the old Ukraine under Viktor Yanukovych. 10 years ago now he left power, not today.
Well, Gulliver, how closely is this story being followed there in Ukraine? What kind of reaction has there been to all of this?
Very, very closely. There's been real indignation about this from the anti-corruption community, in particular activists and the media, but also more broadly because people are acutely aware of the damage that things like this could do to Ukraine's reputation. Volodymyr Zelensky, the president, is in Davos at the moment pleading Ukraine's cause. There are suspicions, though, that the people behind these acts of intimidation, and the journalists are also saying that there have been other incidents in recent months, could be linked to the office of the president. So what they're saying is that Zelensky himself really needs to come out strongly condemning this and reaffirming Ukraine's commitment to freedom of the media and particularly to journalists who are investigating corruption issues.
Gulliver, thank you for that. France 24's Gulliver Cragg reporting for us from Kyiv. Let's come back to France now, where President Emmanuel Macron answered questions on live TV for over 2 hours Tuesday night in a new attempt to try and boost his presidency. Macron talked about preserving France's struggling health system, boosting economic growth, and working with a possible new President Trump once again. He also laid out plans for a shake-up in schools, including possible uniforms for all.
The idea of a school uniform, which has created so much debate and which removes inequality between families while creating respect, will be tested from this year onwards in around 100 schools, all of them on a voluntary basis.
We're going to talk more about this now with our French politics editor, Mark Perlman, who joins me on the set. Mark, this was just the second press conference of its kind since Macron took power in 2017, and there was a lot of focus on education, like we just heard. What else did he have to say?
Clearly, there was a lot of focus on education, and this is not a coincidence. Obviously, his education minister is under fire for her criticism of public schools and also for lying about the reason why she pulled one of her children out of public school to put him in a private school. So she's under fire, under threat of being fired, actually. And so Emmanuel Macron wanted to show that education is a top priority. So you had lots of symbolic announcements, not a major change in the curriculum or the final exams or everything. But yes, he talked about uniforms. He talked about the need to have arts, culture, theater in school, about doing more sports in school, more civic education in school, even learning the national anthem by heart. So I would say rather conservative symbols, because he insisted that school, of course, is the future, but the school needs to be Republican, it needs to be secular, and it needs to be where the values are learned and transmitted. And so he really insisted on all those symbols, and that this will be a key priority, because obviously the new minister is off to a very, very bad start. The unions are already up in arms saying she's not up for the job. So Emmanuel Macron clearly sent the message, if she's not doing the job, don't worry, I'll keep a very close eye on education.
President Macron also talked a lot about Marine Le Pen's party, the far-right National Rally, which has been leading in the polls.
Well, obviously, this was his promise, that he would be elected essentially to prevent Marine Le Pen from being elected. He did it twice, and he promised that when he was re-elected, that he would make everything to make sure the National Rally is not a threat. But actually, all the polls are showing that the National Rally is ahead, not only for the forthcoming European Parliament elections in June, but even if you look already ahead, and obviously the big prize is the 2027 presidential election. So Emmanuel Macron vividly criticized the National Rally, saying this was a party using fears, using lies to promote its ideology. But what's interesting is that he said, you know, their economic recipes are hailing from the far left. Those are old measures and so on. He didn't so much criticize the National Rally for its ideology, for the way it sees immigrants, about Islam and everything else, which is the traditional criticism of the National Rally. He says, no, it's more about the economy, stupid, if I may use the expression. And he said the National Rally is not giving you the right recipe. So it's an interesting way of criticizing the National Rally on an economic, social standpoint rather than political, ideological. But obviously, the National Rally is going strong. Many of its ideas are even implemented, some might say, by Emmanuel Macron's party. Just look at the recent immigration bill that was pushed through Parliament, and clearly some of the ideas come from the National Rally. This is a trend in France, across the Atlantic, and across the borders here in Europe. It's not an isolated phenomenon, but clearly it's there. Emmanuel Macron promised again that he would do his utmost, but let's not forget, he cannot run for re-election. And so the odds-on favorite is now the candidate for the National Rally, Marine Le Pen.
Okay, Mark, thanks for that. That's our French politics editor, Mark Proman. Well, Macron will be continuing to push forward his 2024 agenda at the World Economic Forum in Davos today, where he will lay out the highlights of the year, including, of course, the Paris Olympics this summer. And here in France, Team France revealed their 2024 uniforms in style on Tuesday with a unique fashion show. About a dozen athletes took part at the French Olympic Committee HQ, as Jean-Emile Jamin explains.
A catwalk of tricolor showcasing the best of France in their pursuit of gold. Models exchanged places with athletes on Tuesday as the Paris Fashion Week revealed all the specialized kits designed for this year's Olympic and Paralympic Games.
France was the main inspiration. The colors, the diversity, the sports, the bodies, the athletes' disciplines, the details. I wanted to rework the French flag, break it, unify it, mix the blue into the white into the red. I wanted to modernize it.
Outfits included athletes' village uniforms with a slightly retro 1990s vibe, as well as training and competition kits provided by Le Coq Sportif. For the men and women of Team France, it was all glamour and fun, as the occasion brought with it an immense source of pride.
Discovering the France Olympic team's outfits and trying them on helps you project yourself even further into the competition.
Having the chance to test the jacket today means we're getting a little closer to Paris 2024.
When you put on the kit, it takes on another dimension. You go from dream to reality, and that's something to be proud of.
With just several months to go, there's not long to wait now until France gets to witness their athletes rise to the Olympic challenge. Now with a uniform fit for purpose.
You're watching France 24. Stay with us.
a sacred monument about to be reborn. The royal tomb of Kasubi, classified by UNESCO and destroyed in a fire in 2010, stands once again.
It's symbolic, it's iconic. This is what Buganda is about. You know, it's one thing you point and say, that's Buganda.
Jonathan Subuga is about to complete the project of his lifetime. He's reconstructing a place where the 4 greatest sovereigns of Buganda rest. A millennia-old monarchy that still governs 14 million people in Uganda. It took the architect more than 13 years to complete this giant hut, built by hand by hundreds of workers. But the site is not yet open to visitors.
We're not building to open, we're building for the future generation. It has to be correct. So the pressure is big, and that's why, for me, I'm only interested in doing the right thing.
Here, modern techniques are forbidden. Each detail is carefully incorporated in a specific order, following the old traditions. The Leopard clan, one of the 52 clans in Buganda, is entrusted with handling the fabrics.
Is carrying out a job that's been handed down through generations. They've done something that they're going to talk about for the rest of their lives.
The site is set to open to the public in 2024, but the tombs themselves will remain concealed behind these huts. Their visit is prohibited by the laws of the kingdom. The Ugandan capital, Kampala, was built around these lands 130 years ago. Since then, Buganda remains at the heart of the city. The Mengo neighborhood houses the historical center of this monarchy. Along the main avenue, 56 statues of animals and plants stand, representing the major families. Alan Kakembo, the most senior local guide, passes by each day.
If you don't belong to a clan, you have no future and you have no past. Because once you belong to a clan, that means you have a family. The only leader that is on top of all the clans is the king.
At the end of the avenue, the king has his own palace, an immense building he rarely visits. Here, the kingdom faced its darkest times. A pioneer of independence in the 1960s, the King Mutesa II is forced into exile by Milton Obote, a president-turned-dictator who abolished these traditional leaders.
There are lots of people that were killed on this hill, and those were the days when we had the dictators in Uganda. This palace was turned into a military base, and the soldiers who lived here happened to have killed many people on these grounds. In our traditions, such a place is considered to be unclean to the king.
When President Yoweri Museveni took office in the late 80s, he facilitated the return of the new sovereign for reconciliation after a civil war. Mutebi II then established his empire. Though rarely seen in public with a mainly ceremonial role, his government is actively present, just steps away from his palace. The ministers manage the heritage of Buganda, over 6,000 hectares of land, around 100 historical sites, and shares in major businesses. A true state within the state.
We have government doing their own things and also Buganda Kingdom, but we coexist. Most of our work which the king wants is helping the people from the impoverished state they are in. There are so many people who come from the different counties to show their allegiance. They bring in money in form of cash, they bring in presents, and so many other things.
A kingdom founded by its loyal followers and kept alive in the minds by guardians of memory.
Who is a prince? Hey, now, the princes and the princesses, you give them other tasks, eh?
John Sempebwa, passionate about the country's complex history, opened his own museum a few years ago.
So the king planned to kill his brother, his stubborn brother.
The murals narrate the history of the 36 sovereigns of Buganda, each depicted by dozens of statues symbolizing John's passion. His love for an empire that survived dictators and Western colonization. His dream to one day receive a royal visit.
When the king visits you, oh, it's the best thing that can happen to the world. The president can change, you know, I'm not attached to the president, but to the king, it's a personal, emotional. You can't deny me that right. We love our king.
One of the rare moments when the king can be seen in public is during his birthday, every 13th of April. Like John, millions of subjects eagerly await this event, when the museum creator may finally have the chance to meet his sovereign.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, excuse me. Hi. May I ask you? Hi, my name is Pascal.
Hi, Pascal.
What's your relationship with fashion?
I have I think a healthy relationship with fashion. I appreciate it. I have respect for it. I enjoy it, and I also have fun with it.
It's an art.
Yes, for sure, it's an art. Yes, 100%. Yeah. Thank you.
Fashion is, of course, about artistry, but does it deserve to be elevated to the status of art in its own right? If next winter's exquisite ready-to-wear collections presented in Paris are anything to go by, the answer is a resounding yes. Although these fans outside the Dior show have turned out for an altogether different reason. They're here to spot their favourite influences.
When you get dressed in the morning, it can be like putting on an armor, a shield. You can wear something that functions as an extension of your personality. And sometimes it's easier to wear something than to say something, if you want to get a message across. And clothes are so much more than just clothes, especially at Dior. Absolutely, it's important to me. I've attended Fashion Week and Women's Fashion Weeks for the past 3 years. I think it's really important because most often we found ourselves among fellow women. It lets us celebrate fashion and women.
The show's backdrop was the work of Joana Vasconcelos. In the early 2000s, the Portuguese artist became known for The Fiancé, a vast sculpture made from 25,000 tampons. For Dior, she opted for a more couture-friendly approach, picking up her knitting needles.
This piece is inspired by the Valkyries, the Norwegian goddesses who save brave warriors on the battlefield. For me, it's the idea of the meeting of two worlds. The fact that fashion and contemporary art can work well together. That we can all share the things we create to make a more beautiful and peaceful world.
The idea started from to think about 50, but we don't realize, especially was really for me a surprise how much I have this idea of 50 that is close with American film, but it's completely different the situation in Europe and especially in Paris, but also in Italy, because it was after the Second War. And we are not to forget that in Paris, in 40, the women had the vote and also the second sex. So I think that Mr. Dior in Paris was more in contact with women like Catherine Dior, of course his sister, but also like Edith Piaf, like Juliette Gréco, that was also a client of Dior with a very strong personality, very resilient, and I want to use their art to really explore the personality, but also to be independent women.
This interpretation of feminism is very hopeful, but it's also about commercial success.
What we can see if we look at LVMH's latest results is that it worked extremely well. Generally speaking, with each collection, there's always some little message, sometimes only subliminal, around the same theme. She is extraordinary. She knows how to conjure an atmosphere while always still focusing on the details of what she produces. She's wonderful.
Fashion is so often about the intersection between a story and a product. For Stella McCartney, that impulse gave way to a daring show that kicked off with a beautiful procession of horses, led by a horse whisperer. It was a nod to a childhood spent riding and her love of all things nature.
The idea was to put people on each side. That was the first proposed configuration, with a quarter down the middle for the horses and the models to walk down. But it was too narrow, so I suggested putting the seats on just one side, and it worked out.
He kept telling me I was crazy. Well, the main message here is we can live in harmony with our fellow creatures. We can have wonderful fashion, beautifully made, timeless in design, without killing animals, you know, and celebrate our relationship of living in harmony with our fellow creatures. So we had Jean-Francois, the French horse whisperer, and his beautiful wild horses, and the relationship between them and the models kept saying, oh, their energy they got off the horses, you know, it was like a healing energy. And then the patterns that came into the knitwear that you see from the blankets of the horses, my mother's photography, my sister's photography of horses, because we've been riding forever as a McCartney family. And, you know, yeah, trying to celebrate fashion, but also celebrate sustainability too.
She's powerful, she's certainly a pioneer. She's doing things that have never been done before in fashion, and I just love that. I love her for that. And she's a cool, like, girl's girl.
Stella McCartney's commitment to vegan fashion is well documented, employing everything from mushroom fibres to recycled food waste in her quest for fashion that's not only beautiful, but responsible too.
Long kept in silence. Restoring the Mau Mau's rebellion's place in Kenya's history.
Whatever our fathers did was never reported in the right way. So people ended up worshipping the ones who are not the owners of independence.
The rebel movement that fought hard against British colonizers is fighting not to be forgotten.
If these stories are not taken from the real Mau Maus, people are going to live with lies, perpetual lies, and the true story will never be known.
Kenya Revisited on France 24 and France24.com. Special event.
Welcome to snowy Davos, where thousands of political, business and civil society leaders are gathering for the 54th edition of the World Economic Forum against a turbulent geopolitical backdrop. This year's theme, Rebuilding Trust in the face of wars, climate disasters and the rapid rise of artificial intelligence. French President Emmanuel Macron, China's number 2, Li Qian, and UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres are among this year's keynote speakers. I'll be reporting here all week, so join us on France 24.
Watch events unfold on France 24 and France24.com.
Hi, I'm Anthony Mills, Vienna correspondent for France 24. There's more to Austria than mountains, lakes and coffee houses, as wonderful as they are. Vienna is a seat of the United Nations and hosts international organizations, so there's plenty of high-profile diplomacy to cover. And every now and then, Austrian national politics goes global.
Anthony Mills, one of the 200 France 24 correspondents around the world.
WESN.
here is the WESN News on the Hour. I am Sarah Ali. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Retired senior superintendent criticizes police administration. Tobago secures participation in upcoming carnival season. Minister Donna Cox meets with FCB to enhance support for vulnerable citizens. Regionally, a 10-year-old child bitten by a shark in the Bahamas. Now for the details. The current police service administration is facing criticism for being labeled as leaderless and ineffective in combating crime, according to retired senior superintendent Johnny Abraham. Speaking at the UNC's anti-crime town hall meeting at the La Jolla Auditorium in St. Joseph, Abraham expressed concerns about the lack of effective leadership within the police force. He attributed this perceived deficiency to individuals being promoted based on personal connections rather than merit. Abraham accused the current generation of police leaders of failing to motivate their subordinates to confront criminals.
Because some persons went and get elevated because of friendship, because of clique. Correct. I used to lock down Central Division with 5 vehicles. One Centennial Junction, one by the roundabout Carey, one crossing by the fish market, one on the highway crossing. You can't come in from north, you can't come from south, you can't come from the east. The thing about the whole police service now is that people afraid to take the challenge to the criminals. If you don't have a leader, you cannot follow it. And there's all proper security in a country, you cannot do investment.
The Secretary of Tourism, Culture, Antiquities and Transportation in the Tobago House of Assembly has announced Tobago's participation in the upcoming carnival season. Addressing concerns surrounding the island's involvement, Secretary Tasha Boris assured that the planning and execution of Tobago's carnival festivities in February are in their final stages. The Tobago Festivals Commission is actively collaborating with various stakeholders to ensure a successful event. Boris mentioned that a discussions are ongoing to determine the extent of support for the carnival. She recalled last year's comprehensive statement by the Chief Secretary outlining the strategic direction for handling February Carnival in contrast to Tobago's October Carnival. The final decisions are still being deliberated as the authorities work towards ensuring a well-organized and enjoyable celebration. In a concerted effort to prioritize the needs of clients, Senator Donna Cox, Minister of Social Development and Family Services, convened a meeting with key representatives of First Citizens Bank on Monday, January 15th. The aim of the discussion was to chart the course for the fiscal year, ensuring a streamlined and supportive environment for vulnerable citizens. The meeting, held at the ministry's head office in Port of Spain, saw the participation of Permanent Secretaries Lenore Baptiste Simmons and Ryan Ramcharan, Deputy Permanent Secretary Wendy Guy Hernandez, with representatives from First Citizens Bank, including Group Chief Executive Officer Karen Derbasi. Central to the agenda were deliberations on overcoming recent technical challenges associated with the 2023 Christmas food card distribution. The collaborative dialogue focused on fostering an environment that facilitates the ease of doing business for the benefit of those in need. In regional news, a 10-year-old boy bitten by a shark in the Bahamas on Monday is now reported to be in stable condition at a local hospital. The Royal Bahamas Police Force issued a medical statement providing details on the incident. The child, who hails from Maryland, was partaking in a shark tank expedition at a resort on Paradise Island just before 4 p.m. when the shark bite occurred. The incident resulted in a bite to the boy's right leg. Swift action by officials ensured the child was promptly transported to the hospital, where he is currently receiving medical attention. Well, that's it. News on the Hour on WESN. I am Sarah Ali. Thank you for watching.
Yo, it's Rome! And this year we want to have a safe carnival just like every other carnival. So this year we're talking a smart carnival. We're talking safety measures against real threats. We're going to vet smart, we're going to play smart, and move smart, because it's all about rum, girl, and money. Not that no call way, no time for folly. We jamming all day. Jamming on the roadway. If you see me in a Benz or a Beamer, hustle hard for me.
Every day, we communicate through stories. Stories of ourselves, our challenges, our goals, our experiences, and our aspirations. Storytelling is an art that we have mastered. WESN Film Studios comprises a collaborative team of experts with extensive industry experience locally, regionally, and internationally. The ability of your business to successfully communicate with your preferred audience depends on the strength of the stories you tell. Your vision should be communicated in a high-quality, professional, and creative way. From concept to post-production, advertising to film, multi-camera productions, live events, streaming, and virtual conferencing, we are WESN Film Studio. Let your own unique voice be heard and your vision realized. Call us today at 628-5835 for your next production.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing now, Andy.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the red, white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
My name is Carl Media, and I'm the founder and the host of Ever Increasing Voice Ministries. Join me every Saturday and Sunday on WESN, this powerful station, at 9 a.m. on Saturdays, 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. nightly. Also on Sundays, I'll be on at 7 a.m., 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. at night time. When you come here, we are getting people heavenly ready.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Sight, Thursdays at 11:30 a.m., only on WESN, Content Capital.
I am Rondell Donowa, attorney at law and host of Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Strictly Legal is a legal program geared towards informing you, the public, of your legal rights, responsibilities, and remedies. So be viewing Thursdays 10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Join me, Dr. Nalini Kokram, on What's Up Doc, where we discuss all your burning questions concerning health.
Trinidad and Tobago is among one of the highest risk group of patients that develop this form of genetic breast cancer.
What I'd like to take home from a short interview like this, screening. You must screen.
Because it's silent.
It's silent.
Yeah.
And because it's silent, you don't know it's there.
What's Up Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
The newest book is here, Closer to the Church, the debut novel by author and former Mayor Louis Lee Singh. Available at all the Home Store branches, Barataria, West Mall, Shogunas and C3 San Fernando. Paper-based bookshop 10 Nook Avenue, St. Anne's. WESN 30A Gattaca Street, Woodbrook. Metropolitan Bookshop, Ariapita Avenue, Woodbrook, and all RIK bookstores nationwide. Available online as paperback on Amazon.com and Kindle for e-readers. For more info, call 628-5835 or 389-6504. Also available from author Louis Lee Singh, I Used to Live in Heaven, Letters to My Granddaughters, and Local Government in Trinidad, Conspiracy Against the People.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, The Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Time to party. Boss lady, it's 2024 and you're still accepting drinks from random strangers? Nah! We're drinking smart to avoid any chance of date rape, so drink smart to be safe this carnival. We love to drink, 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 and party till the morning come. Whoa! But do it smart. Be drinking smart. Bottle!
Drink, 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 and party till the morning come. Yeah. What's wrong with us?
Every day, we communicate through stories. Stories of ourselves, our challenges, our goals, our experiences, and our aspirations. Storytelling is an art that we have mastered. WESN Film Studios comprises a collaborative team of experts with extensive industry experience locally, regionally, and internationally. The ability of your business to successfully communicate with your preferred audience depends on the strength of the stories you tell. Your vision should be communicated in a high-quality, professional, and creative way. From concept to post-production, advertising to film, multi-camera productions, live events, streaming, and virtual conferencing, we are WESN Film Studio. Let your own unique voice be heard and your vision realized. Call us today at 628-5835 for your next production.
WESN.
Welcome, one and all. Apologies for the late start, but Talking Point is still here today. Sean Michael Small before you on WSN, your content capital in HD. All the other HD apparently is in retirement, no pun intended. But we are just getting started, folks, and the new year keeps rolling on, and some of the same old stories, same old problems make up what appears to be a same old agenda. Now, what does this mean for us? I think once again, we've reached a point where we need more participation in the discussion by the general public, and we shouldn't just leave it up to the usual suspects to have their usual discussions and their usual disagreements, and we get the usual results, and then we lament about the state of things, etc., etc. So, what am I talking about? Well, let's start off today's daily review. And yesterday, I believe, one of our callers, was asking the question, where's the Prime Minister on the issue of crime and his leadership? Where is he? I don't know. Which is a fair comment, but technically speaking, even before you ask the question, where is the Prime Minister? Where is the Minister of National Security? Now, what we do know is that with regards to the potential for a state of emergency, there seems to be pushback from more than just the government, right? But what's interesting, the first thing I want to mention, to kind of get it out of the way, is the fact that the Minister of National Security, he has decided to wait until tomorrow when there will be a PNM public meeting in Sawa. He will wait for PNM public meeting. It's interesting because I don't want to necessarily hear from Fitzgerald Hines, member of the PNM. I want to hear from Fitzgerald Hines, Minister of National Security. And you might say I'm splitting hairs, but at the end of the day, crime is such a big thing that I don't know if I wanted to be in a political forum, would be confident. If it's in a political forum would be sanitized. It would be, for lack of a better way to put it, friendly territory, home turf, right? You will not necessarily expect hard questions and challenges. You might get some, because the PNM's forums, I saw at least with the Prime Minister, there were times when he had to face some questions, that were not necessarily the easiest of layups, but at the end of the day, it's not like he's fielding questions from the media or the general public. It's open to the general public. Will moderate voters, undecided voters, and even people who don't normally vote for the PNM go to engage the Minister of National Security in these talks? So he said he will respond, that's it. Meanwhile, Minister of Energy Stuart Young at a PNM function, he did have remarks with regards to the state of emergency. I find it curious that the Minister of Energy was, from what I understood, at least from where I am, I didn't hear any other government minister, parliamentarian, PNM official even, but forget that. I didn't hear any other member of government respond. His was the first response that I took note of. And Minister Young, again, Minister of Energy, or should we say Minister of Everything? Maybe it's somewhat telling that he had the first go around at responding to the calls for a state of emergency. And he did say that, listen, it's not as though the last time, despite how it was framed on Monday night, it's not as though everything was hunky-dory. And there were lawsuits coming out of that because of some of the wrongful detention, wrongful arrest situations that happened. So he echoed some of the points that I said, and to some extent, it's reasonable. He's not necessarily, though, the Minister of National Security or the head of the National Security Council. So his response is, secondary is just a light response. It's the initial greeting to the topic, I guess you could say. But it's not really the meat of the matter. Now, meat of the matter. I did say that there was pushback to the state of emergency calls. One area of pushback, ironically, was from one, well, it's reported Gary Griffith is actually of the opinion that a state of emergency should be of last resort. And I find this interesting because, ironically, he called for criminals and gangsters, etc., to be treated as terrorists in order to utilize all of the other mechanisms that the Anti-Terrorism Act would allow for, which, based on the definition of the Act, generally speaking, anybody who is aware of what terrorism is and how it's defined globally would understand this concept. But it's also, in my opinion, how it's defined in the Act. It could easily, utilizing that piece of legislation, be considered by the court in subsequent lawsuits that will follow, they will, somewhat of an overreach. And utilizing legislation that, for unintended purposes, for purposes where it's not applicable, and utilizing a level of response that is potentially not applicable. But the Anti-Terrorism Act, now I'm not entirely sure, but I do think it will allow for further national security apparatus to be brought to bear on the subjects in question, which might include more of the defense force, etc., to some extent. And you could do that same thing. You could reduce the thresholds in certain ways. You can increase the powers of the police by a state of emergency. And that, to some extent, will not necessarily have the questions on if it's even legal to apply it to the current situation. I think a SOE would accomplish what the former commissioner wants to accomplish, but he's not for that. He is, and all, is necessarily seeing the negatives, right? And he actually did say, and I find this interesting, that he doesn't believe the current situation warranted another one, mainly because he was just recently at the town hall meeting. A part of it, he has had a working relationship with the UNC, so to say. They collaborated, they had an alliance for the local government election, but he has maintained his independence, and perhaps now he reserves the right to have independent thought, which is fine, which is even a positive. My criticisms of his Anti-Terrorism Act usage notwithstanding. But he actually thinks that, well, he said, is just the opposite of a need for a state of emergency. It was articulated that there were a number of different policies that were extremely effective in 2010 to 2015, and he's saying that those initiatives could be brought to bear and similar things could be brought to bear. And again, technically I agree with him. I don't know if it's time to push the panic button yet, because there's a whole host of complexities and complications and messages sent out and logistics and one could even say legal questions, right, to just bring about a new state of emergency, as well as economic complications. But we spoke about that yesterday. And that leads me to the opposition leader, who is, I guess, defending her position. And this is where the Minister of National Security's decision of when and where he will respond is interesting. Because if you looked at the town hall meeting, there was no rising sun in sight based on the photos that I saw. There were members of the opposition. The opposition leader was sitting on the dais, on the stage. It was labeled as the event under the office of the leader of the opposition, not under the UNC or the political leader of the UNC. And I don't recall seeing UNC shirts, UNC flags, right? Or NTA shirts, and I saw no political symbolism there, which is interesting. And I think, you know, a bit of an effective choice of messaging to show that we are not taking this issue necessarily as a political one, or we're not trying to overtly politicize the issue. You could say semantics, you don't have to believe it. I'm just saying what the messaging suggests, whether it is, how to put it, in good faith, whether it is intentional or not, whether it is just, you know, going through the motions and giving lip service to objectivity. right? That is the presentation that we got. So now, with Mr. Hines going to a political meeting of the PNM, as opposed to having a press conference under the office of the Minister of National Security, one would argue the most important, and if not most, second most to the head of the National Security Council / Prime Minister office with regards to this topic. The dichotomy, the contrast, I find interesting, especially since he's going second. It's not as though he went first and now he's being one-upped by the response. No, he's going second, and he's using a political platform potentially to speak on government policy. Meanwhile, the PNM has tried to maintain a separation between their government communications and their political public relations machinery. They have two separate people in that. They don't have the same person there involved. Now, the opposition leader, I think the problem is twofold. One, she's utilizing a lot of emotional appeal. Dr. Rampasad and her statements that's been reported in the press and been repeated by the opposition leader. It's an emotional appeal. To some extent, you could understand it. When daylight shootings are occurring, it's hard to feel safe. But on a practical level now, those sorts of things, I don't think really are a good starting point with regards to making policy decisions on this level. The other thing is that, and it was pointed out, I can't remember who exactly, I think it was one of the political scientists who responded to this, basically said, if the opposition suggests it, right, will the government actually take it on? And this goes back to what I said at the top, because then he pointed out, and I can't remember which political scientist it was, it could be Reginald Dumas. Then he went to point out that what is needed if we, TNT, think we need a state of emergency is for the society to make it a national call as opposed to the opposition, despite the fact that they did not have their political party all up everywhere. There was, the background wasn't yellow, the rising sun wasn't plastered everywhere, etc., etc. So they tried to give it to have it give a look of objectivity. It's still coming from the opposition. And politics, the political environment we have. We just saw what happened with the crime talks, right? It's almost like if neither side is really willing to work with each other because they are living up to the expectations of their base and they don't necessarily know how to compromise without feeling that they look weak, feeling that they're giving in. So we need a national call if this is what we want, or if this is not what we want, a national discussion with regards to this, and not just leave it up to the opposition to be the counter-argument to the government, because they're not necessarily inclined to listen. And unfortunately, I don't expect, if these situations reverse, for it to be much different. Which is why, like I said at the top, with regards to the PNM political meeting this Thursday, all who can go, go. Again, it's a platform for your voice to be heard. The opposition leader presented one on Monday, and now the PNM is presenting one on Thursday. All right, let's just try and go quick with some of the next topic. And of course, this one kind of leads into the last one. The responses of the police. It seems the public isn't necessarily happy with it. And of course, we had some people respond to what came out of the town hall meeting, some political scientists and analysts. But one of the things that the public is speaking out about, again, and this is what I don't understand, right? I mean, they're pointing out weaknesses, they're pointing out the lack of arrests, they're pointing out the fact that, hey, you confiscate guns. We don't know what happens to these guns. We're just assuming that they are disposed of correctly. We're hoping that they are disposed of correctly. But given the fact that we have situations where the professionalism of the TNT police service has come into question, the professionalism of the Defense Force and the Coast Guard, maybe not so much the Defense Force at times, but the Coast Guard has come into question in incidents reported in the media, right? there are a lot of questions and there are a lot of things that we just assume to be going okay, and are they going okay? But then on top of that, there's one thing with the public skepticism and complaints that I myself am just a tiny bit frustrated in, and that is with the calls to utilize the death penalty. And I think people need to understand it's not that we don't use the death penalty, and it's not that the death penalty isn't legal. And we've said this before on the show, but I want to take the time to say it again. It's about the fact that the Privy Council has a ruling that says you have to get everything done in a certain amount of time, or effectively you can't execute the person. Keeping them on death row for too long is inhumane, and the death sentence is commuted to life in prison instead. So the real issue is not the Privy Council's ruling. One could argue that yes, with a different ruling, we could get the death penalty. But I think the real issue that will affect most cases is the fact that the process for trial takes so long. It takes so long in general that we can't actually finish with all of the appeals, etc., before that time limit is up. And we have to ask why, right? I pointed out a story the other day with a robbery where, in a robbery case, one of the prosecutors, one of the witnesses, and somebody else involved with the case, you know, it was 18 years or some ridiculous figure like that, and 3 people central to the process passed away, including the officer in charge of the lineup, right? Where, you know, for witnesses start the identification period. And apparently the defense used people that were part of the identification period as part of the witnesses of the defense. So that situation came up in question apparently in the trial. But unfortunately the person that oversaw that passed away. Trials take too long, and it's not just the situation with the death penalty, it also impacts other areas of national security, of the crime fighting, because, well, they end up in remand, they're technically not convicted yet. It's a vicious cycle. They feel victimized. Even if they're guilty of a crime, technically they are victimized. And then, because of just the sheer time, some of them get off on a technicality, and then it comes back down to the published response, they're not seeing results. Not seeing results. The detection rate is bad enough, but then what is the conviction rate? There were some other stories, but because of the late start, I think I'm gonna have to leave it. Well, actually, no. I just wanna let's move on quick, and I'll be fast with the next 2 stories. You may have seen protests in Vancouver. One of the things that I just wanted to point out with this situation here is that with these protests, the residents had something very unfortunate to say, right? They say that they haven't seen PNM or UNC politicians or councillors in the area. They're quoted saying, I don't know if the politicians are living, or meaning if the politicians are even alive. And they lamented the fact that the community is so small that politicians do not see their votes as important to winning at the polls. And this could very well be an example of people slipping through the cracks because of our political environment, which is more about trying to win elections as opposed to service. And some people in the community said that they think the protests are political, but the quote is, we never see none of them, no PNM, no UNC, no councillor. So what is there left for us to think about a situation like that? We know what road repairs in TNT is like and how bad it could get, but some of these rural areas, I did not know how bad it could get on a first-hand basis until I went to Moruga for the first time. And trust me, it was bad. And I'm probably understating it by several orders of magnitude. And then the last thing I'll get into fast, High Street, there's no more vending on High Street. Apparently several business owners had legal letters against the San Fernando Corporation, and that's why the city of San Fernando made the moves that they're in. And I think at the end of the day, yes, it sounds bad. What will these poor vendors do? But we need to understand that technically they're vending illegally, from what I understand, and the situation is there are businesses on that street that invested a lot more capital, have a lot more overhead, right, and has gone through the process legally to have their establishments there. And by having street vending in front of them, congestion in the streets, potentially causing or contributing to traffic, making it difficult for foot traffic or vehicular traffic for customers to reach their businesses, what is fair? And I think we ourselves need to do better with regards to planning, with regards to our city layouts, with regards to how we're organized and structured. It's not just with crime, but crime is just a scenario, an example that is difficult to deny and whose stakes are even higher, so the results are hard to ignore. But the lack of organization and professionalism permeates many aspects of our society. And this is just, with regards to illegal vending in city streets, a wee example of that situation. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll welcome the good lady herself. Stay tuned to Talking Point on WSN, your content capital.
Like many others trying to save on Carnival, Gabby thought she should go for 50% off makeup.
What about the other side? Well, Daisy 50% off offer. So you know.
No makeup artist we don't know. What we do know is the savviest savings for Carnival are at KFC. Get a Jab Jab box, 1-piece chicken, 1 regular fries, and a biscuit for only $25.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity, from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas, and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
Join me, Dr. Nalini Kokram, on What's Up Doc, where we discuss all your burning questions concerning health.
Trinidad and Tobago is among one of the highest risk group of patients that develop this form of genetic breast cancer.
What I'd like to take home from a short interview like this is screening. You must screen.
Because it's silent.
It's silent.
Yeah.
And because it's silent, you don't know it's there.
What's Up Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing now, Andrew.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Paul?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the red, white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close it down.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
Welcome back to Talking About, ladies and gentlemen. And one of the things that I have mentioned before is the fact that while there might be many controversies surrounding the government of Trinidad and Tobago, and you could go as far back as you want regardless of administration, and you could pick out controversies that were quite substantial. One of the things that I find interesting is the question over the Inez Gate, no, not Inez Gate like Watergate, but literally the name of the development from what I understand is Inez Gate. The situation, I don't want to say controversy, but the situation seems to be still within the national sphere, national discussion, at a time when the news cycle tends to be, 24 hours or 7 days, and then, we spit that out and we get to the new thing, unless it's something big like crime. But even crime, we don't really talk about the crime talk so much anymore. Now we're talking about state of emergency. We've moved on. But somehow this question about the Prime Minister getting a townhouse at a certain valuation, and if and how it was declared, seems to still be an issue that is important to some people, and one that the Prime Minister himself is now looking to defend, and the Integrity Commission is somehow caught smack dab in the middle with questions to that body as well. Now, to try and break it down a bit so that we could understand some of the background of all of the moving parts, we have the good lady herself, Mrs. Karen Shashera. Karen, morning.
Morning to you, Sean, and I know we have limited time, so I will try to get to the nub of it. Yes, you said the matter has not gone away, so I'll start first with what Mr. Ravi Bhargobin Maharaj, who is a well-known activist, who brought an action against the Integrity Commission and asking the court to review what you call a judicial review of the decision of the Integrity Commission, and for them to declare that the Integrity Commission acted in bad faith and is guilty of the tort of, forgive me if my pronunciation, I was going to try and check it before I came on, so forgive me, misfeasance in bad faith. That's basically what it means. So let's see what the judicial review really means. It's really a decision of an inferior court or tribunal or public body, a decision, and what you're saying is that in exercising that decision, for instance, the Customs Act gives them that power, the Customs Act gives the custom officers that power, but that's by statute. So it has to be an inferior body that exercises certain powers, and what you're saying is that when they did so, when you're applying for judicial review, you're saying that their decision was unauthorized or contrary to the law, or to an excess of jurisdiction, meaning it was ultra vires, or it's very importantly a breach of natural justice. So there are several reasons. And what one has to remember is that when you approach the court to argue that a decision of an inferior tribunal, which will be the Integrity Commission in this case, because they're a statutory body, when you argue to them, you have to argue almost like if you're arguing like in a trial, because you have to persuade the court. And in this case, it was Justice Devendra Ramnarayan that this was a matter in which the matter should be subject to judicial review. So to have to argue that and to succeed in getting leave, generally speaking, because of the fact that you've got to really argue a case, is really seen as in many cases, I'm not saying this case, but in many cases, when you succeed at judicial review, it generally is a good indication that if it goes to, when it goes to hearing, that you probably will be successful. I am not saying it is going to happen, I'm just saying that is just the facts. So what were the things that kept coming up, and what were the bases upon which the application was made against the Integrity Commission? It was basically three things. Now, Sean and I were just discussing, and I myself will admit, if we have the time, and I have no problem doing that, there is a Form A and a Form B. The Form A, definitely you have to fill in everything, including valuations, everything in Form A, because that's what the Integrity Commission needs, because the purpose of the legislation, which was passed in 2000, November 2000, was to ensure that persons in public office or exercise public duties, that they were free from any corruption or things that happen in cases of persons in public offices. So that was the purpose. So there were three bases upon which the application has been made against the Integrity Commission to declare that they acted in bad faith. They said first, there was a non-disclosure of the acquisition of this property called Ines Gate, a townhouse of Ines Gate, and I suspect that that was done in Part A, definitely in Part B, which is what the public sees. Now, the public just sees what the things that you must declare. They don't have to see the price, but there is a Part B for the public scrutiny. So the first part is that in 2019, he did not disclose that he had acquired this townhouse, that he knowingly, because you have to say knowingly, it's not just that it has to be intention, knowingly made a false declaration as to the value of the townhouse in his declaration of income, assets, and liabilities. That's also part of the forms, which would be Form A, I suppose. And a failure to disclose in his statement a registrable interest. And Section 14 tells you what constitutes a registrable interest. Among that is a beneficial interest in land. So the basis upon which this matter is being brought is that he acquired, first he didn't declare it, certainly not in Part B, but further than that, it amounted to a gift. This is not a question that he breached a natural justice, that he didn't let the commission know that he had that property, acquired that property, but the market value based on what is out there in the hearing, apparently, is that he got it at such a deep discount of over 480 million, and that of course will affect the stamp duty. And the legislation provides that a minister, etc., can receive a gift up to $5,000. So the question was that a gift? That's one of the arguments. It amounted to a gift because the market value was so much higher than what he paid, and it is from whom he got it. Someone who's a known financier and friend of the Prime Minister. And they're saying, so that was a substantial undervalue of the property. So that he failed to declare that in his registrable interest, which is what he's required to do. So you can say that he's not liable, which is what the Integrity Commission tried to say, allege is that, well, it was just a code of conduct issue, but I think the argument is that he did not without reasonably, one could say it is not reasonable to conclude that he didn't know that a townhouse is not a condominium, because you have to declare any beneficial interest in land. That is one of the registrable interests that Section 14 says that you must declare. We won't speak, I mean, we're talking about him as Prime Minister, so he has access to the whole Attorney General Department. He has access to a lot of legal scholars. And I think most people will know that a condominium, you don't own land, it's an apartment. A townhouse, which is what it was he had acquired, there's land, it's land. So therefore, to claim ignorance of the fact that this is not a condominium and you didn't know that was land and you didn't have to declare it, there's something about that well, it is noteworthy that it's a hard sell. And clearly it was a hard sell because the Justice Devendra Ramnarayan gave Mr. Mirage leave or permission to pursue judicial review against the Integrity Commission on the basis that they did not acted in bad faith, or they were guilty of bad faith in public office. And so that's part A and part B. So that's really what is before the courts. And what makes it a little bit, kind of muddies the waters a little bit, is that Rajendra Ramlogan, who was the chair, had a term of office that had come to an end, stated publicly that he got a reduced budget. He was under-resourced in the Integrity Commission. And that by the way, when the investigation was carried out, this came out in the evidence apparently, that the investigators were not external investigators, but they were internal investigators, and that the report, any report would be sent to the, I believe, to the Prime Minister's office, to his permanent secretary. So he said, according to the report in the papers, that is the former chair, he said the Integrity Commission got the lowest financial allocation since 2010. They did get a higher allocation of investigations, but he said, I'm quoting him, a commission starved of funds can only do so much when complaints against persons in public life and persons exercising public functions is confronted by a plethora of senior counsels, but is without a budget to seek similar expertise, it becomes an enduring battle. So I guess what he's saying is that as he left office, that he felt that the thing was stacked against the Integrity Commission, and it's more important than the person. That's what I'm taking out of that. That's really going to be my takeaway from that. And since I'm on the topic, which I told Sean, you see, if it were just, and this happened with me, so I know how the Integrity Commission really does have reasons to have concerns about the Integrity Commission. And in my case, I did not declare that I had CL Financial shares which I had inherited from my husband in Part B. I had in Part A. Whether or not I prepared it or not, I signed off on it. But I guess the reason why, and I wrote to they sent it to the DPP, but they had to apologize to me. They had to apologize because they couldn't tell me what was the wrong thing I did. Because at that time, the CL Financial was not even in the consideration, so why would I try not to disclose it? There would be no basis not to disclose it.
And it was in Part A.
Huh?
And it wasn't Part A, you disclosed it.
It wasn't Part A, but you see, Part B is for the public to see.
Yeah.
Right? So what the thing is, you don't want the public to know that you have this. And that would have been relevant if at that time, the CL Financial was an issue. And then you say,
what happened to CL Financial did not happen yet.
At all. And therefore, you can't argue she's trying to hide it. But anyway, that's beside the point. The point is that my lawyers, very good lawyers, wrote to them. And eventually, they wrote me back and apologized. I'm sure they didn't mean it. And they put me through a very grueling session, and it was clear to me that they had been given instructions to get Karen Nunes Teixeira and get a case, So I do understand the Prime Minister. In this case, it's different. It's a case of the Integrity Commission not acting in good faith, and the fact that the judge gave leave, you cannot dismiss that. Now, why do I say that you can't take this in what you say in isolation or in vacuum, as lawyers love to say, is because there are two things that bring back. Of course, we all know about Land 8 of 2000. And one has to bear in mind that, and I do think that the Prime Minister was absolutely within his right, that there was a breach of natural justice, because when allegations were made that materials were being siphoned off from Scarborough Hospital. By the way, I worked with a law firm that dealt with the Scarborough Hospital matter of arbitration, so I sort of have a good insight from that point of view. And siphoning off material to a project called Land 8 Project, which is owned and developed by his wife, not by him. And these allegations had been made, but his argument was, and it was a valid argument, and it was held up by the court, that they did not give, meaning he nor his wife, a fair opportunity to defend or to put their position either through themselves or their counsel until they had to read in the newspapers in 2006 or 2007, I have the dates, that this matter had been with the DPP, I think, since August, and they knew nothing about it. And I think what also muddied it again and made it even more difficult is that Mrs. Rowley, as the owner and developer, not knowing that the Integrity Commission had made this decision, sent it to DPP without their knowledge, continued to, provide them with information, thinking that the matter was still being investigated. So there's no question that behavior was egregious. There's no question there was a breach of natural justice. I mean, anybody reading that case is going to have to come to that conclusion. I think the report was 7th of August 2006. He had to read about it in the papers that the DPP had it since August. You know, I mean, since August, I might get my dates mixed up, but the point is the DPP had it quite a while and they didn't even know. So that's definitely a breach of natural justice, and he did have a very good case. And so when he has considered the Integrity Commission and say they're political on both sides of the fence, you know. So I just want to make it understand, they're political on both sides of the fence, because when they came after me, as I felt it was, and they had to eventually have to apologize to me, because I told them I was going for judicial review. You have a limited time, I think 6 months. And my lawyers told them if they do not tell me what it is I did of a criminal nature, we are going for judicial review. All of a sudden, the light came on, and they suddenly said, oh, we're sorry. So, you know, but the thing about the land date matter is that, yes, on a point of natural justice, on a point of a failure to give him an opportunity to be heard, absolutely the Prime Minister and his wife, who was the owner and developer, were absolutely within their rights, and the decision was a correct decision. I don't think anybody could argue that. However, the substantive matter of whether there was siphoning off of material has never been decided. And I know there are many people who felt that that should have happened. The contractor at the time was NH, and at that point in time, when I came in, it had reached arbitration because everything had broken down, the prices had gone way off, for whatever reason that happened, delays and so on, but it was NH that was the contractor, and it had gone to arbitration. So we have never ever heard if in fact there was siphoning off of the material. That has never been decided, and that's something I think the Prime Minister should have wanted to have heard. And the reason I go now, slipping quickly from that, is again we see the things with the TH, so that's NH, which we know is owned by Amy Elias. I think he's the main owner or person or chair or whatever of it. We also have Farley Augustine in this last year, June 2023, saying that he was being pressured to pay in front of others and more than others from the central government, the Warner Construction and Sanitation Company. And that again is a good friend of the Prime Minister from whom Ines Gate property was bought. So, and he alleged that there had been an audio taken and that it was being used to pressure him. I don't know if he pulled back from that, pressure him to pay up the money, and the orders were coming from the central government. So that THA issue, which was just June of this 2023, involving Warner, this Ines Gate, again, for involving the Warner Company, and then I turned to the issue with the Scarborough Hospital involving NH. And I have to read, because I wish the Prime Minister would publish the Commission of Inquiry into the self-finance. It would be so helpful to all of us. So I'm reading from it. These are not my words. This is from the Off-Commission report. When they finally decide and were going to open the View Fort in St. James, he was the Prime Minister, but at the time when these issues with Cleaver Heights, which again was an NH project, Amy Elias company, it had stalled, and there'd been all kinds of confusion. And there is a recording, anybody could get it, I have it, where he, said that this whole off-commission report was because of him, and he will never forget. You'll never forget the $10 million. I will never forget that 10 million, never, never, never. And this is why they had it, and he went on and on about it. So for the first time, I decided, let me read the report, because there were people who were very offended that, one, that he was saying that Cleaver Heights, which was Amy Elias NH project, was because of him, his involvement, which was not true. And then I decided to read it. So this is what I am going to prepare. And it's this. I'm not making this up. I'm being very careful. In part 2 of the UDICOT Commission of Inquiry report, a paragraph, now I have it as 113.18, but forgive me if I have it wrong, but you can read it. This is the quotation verbatim. Dr. Rowley accepted in oral evidence that Mr. Elias was a friend who had contributed financially to his unsuccessful campaign to become leader of the PNM. Now, why is that important? That's important because at Viewfort, at the YouTube, at 13.35 to 14.07 minutes, the Prime Minister stated that he was on his way home but decided to stop in, and then he mentioned Eden Gate, which had been acquired under the People's Partnership government. And he said a commercial valuation had been done, and they had valued the property at $52 million, and the People's Partnership paid $135 million. And he spoke about it with respect to accountability on the part of the People's Partnership. So having read that, I'm just saying what was inside the report from the off-commission report, part 4, paragraph 252. A proposal was given by NH to sell to HDC, and I think at that time the Prime Minister was Minister of Housing. It used to be NHA and then became HDC. 64 acres at $22 million undeveloped. And if you developed it, put in infrastructure, you mean, he added 18.480, which would come up to a little over 40 million. And NHA, which later became HDC, commissioned 2 land valuations by the HDC, by their own employees. And in respect to the land undeveloped, they valued it at 11 million twice. Twice. This is in the report. In the report, they gave a valuation of 11 million both times, and 30 million if they had put in the infrastructure. And according to part 4, paragraph 27.3, this is what in the off-commission report, this is what it said. I'm quoting from it. With respect to the land, NHA gave no plausible reason why the land was acquired for 22 million undeveloped and 40 million developed after it had commissioned 2 reports which valued the land at 11 million, for which no explanation was advanced. So I just wanted to give, in all fairness to everyone, I think, they get a full picture, and all of that I have said, as not currently Shearer's words, this is coming from the Commission of Inquiry report, and those are, I think it's, you can check it out and you'll see it for yourself. And so while the Prime Minister said, well, you have an accountability and you bought this land that had been valued at half of what it was and you bought it for twice the amount, yet you have off report saying, well, NH, who admitted it in the report, Dr. Malley accepted, not admitted, accepted in oral evidence that Mr. Elias was a friend who had contributed financially to his unsuccessful campaign to become leader of the PNM. And then you have at paragraph 27.3, with respect to the land, NHA gave no plausible reason why the land was acquired for 22 million undeveloped and 40 million developed after they had commissioned 2 reports which valued it at 11 million. And at that time, I think the Prime Minister was Minister of Housing. So I think I've dealt with land date, Scarborough Hospital, which went to arbitration, and also this current issue with regard to the Integrity Commission, and which the Integrity Commission is just review was granted. And you do not grant, in my experience as an attorney, just review so lightly. I think you have to be fairly, what is the word? You've got to put a good case before, because it's a serious matter.
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, there's too many questions, right? especially when you then also not just take the context of, well, the Prime Minister has had similar questions before on similar matters, but also there's similar questions on the independence of other institutions that's supposed to be independent, right? One of which being, as I've brought up before, the office of the DPP, with concerns of his office being underfunded. And I guess therein lies the rub, because I understand that funds are limited, and I think what differentiates good leaders from bad leaders is not necessarily their ability to identify the problem. Because I think there are a lot of smart people in government, and there are a lot of smart people who can identify problems. And even people who are not so smart can identify, you know, problems that might not even be obvious, might be less than the obvious problems, right? But then where you get the brilliance is the plan that you make to prioritize, because it's not how to solve the problem, but how to utilize resources to try to solve the most important problems when you don't have enough to solve all of them at the same time. How do you prioritize? And that I say with regards to funding for the things like the office of the DPP and things like the Integrity Commission, right? We take it for granted. Well, if there's no corruption, why do we need the Integrity Commission? No, we need it as an instrument in a way to kind of, once we have confidence in it, then we can have confidence in the results.
And all countries will have similar legislation, because the fact of the matter is that when you are in public office, you have access, you have a lot of power and access to billions of dollars.
Of course.
So that it makes you sort of, puts you in a position
and we've already
that you would not otherwise
you know,
be
questions over PR code, questions over Section 34. Of course, yes, there are questions over CLICO. There's questions with regards to, well, now, Inez Gate, ANV drilling has, well, the state did not appeal.
But that's a different matter.
It's a different matter.
Because that did not go, that's not a judicial review matter. You know, maybe the lawyer may say that. That's not a judicial review matter.
So from that perspective, it's different. But from my perspective as a layperson looking at controversial matters, right? These are things that are there that I don't know if enough of the population is satisfied with the results and the explanation that has come out.
And all the connections, you see, that's the disturbing thing, you know. Why two particular entities are starring in issues, I don't mean starring like in a movie, but central to issues that speak to potential allegations of corruption. That is where the problem lies, I think.
You also mentioned off air yesterday when we were speaking, you know, even when Faldegaston had his presentation, so to speak, in the THA, one of the things in the video recording, Mr. Warner's son's name was mentioned as being part of the alleged conspiracy, which that and all is also something that should be looked into one way or the other, right? Transparency on matters is what counts. So I do find it still interesting. One thing, is it strange? Because I found it strange that the Integrity Commission apparently had 3 investigations. And I don't know if you address this, but is it strange that happened, or is it that, well, they looked into one instance and then they looked into a different facet of the situation each time, and it's not that strange?
Well, what I would say, and that's, of course, you know, one thing we know is what we don't know. Right? That's one thing we know is that we don't know. But what I do know is that there are a lot of things that can be going on behind the scenes of which we would not be privy. So the fact that they were so determined and the fact that they were successful at the end of the day, it was 3 different things. One, not declaring it at all. And I think the Prime Minister, from what I read, he said he didn't think that qualified as land, but that, you know, that's a little hard to swallow. That's why he didn't declare it.
Yeah.
Right? So that first thing is the non-declaration. The second part was how much, and that's the gift part, because the registrable interest talks about you have to declare beneficial interest in land. It's a number of things, whether you have an associate with a company, a number of things. It's a whole list, section 14, right? 14.3, I believe. So what it is one is that you did not declare beneficial interest in land. And to say that you didn't know that the townhouse came under that category is a difficult thing for someone to accept as being, you know, and that's one. Secondly, the deep discount that he got, because that qualifies as a gift, given the relationship with himself on the Warner Construction Sanitation and the difference, and it would affect the stamp duty. You know, so, and also the investigation was not done by any external investigators, it was done internally. So we don't know, and I do not know what was going on behind the scenes. We don't know. But what I do know is that they felt that they had a good case, and they were determined that whoever, because I think if I could just come to my own situation, I was absolutely sure that they were determined that they were going to get me, and they brought in a forensic, somebody from Canada, a forensic accountant, to do nothing but grill me, and my lawyer, whose name I won't mention at this point for whatever reason, he was the one who got so upset because he thought I would get upset, but I was just shocked at all the things that he was bringing up that had nothing to do with why was I there? And the gentleman appeared to me, got red in the face, and got so angry that we had to take a break. So to me, it seemed to me that it appeared to me that he had instructions to bring home the bacon, and what he was not succeeding in doing is doing exactly that. And we actually had to, my lawyer, had to ask, let's take a break. This thing is getting too heated. And so I do believe that the Integrity Commission, from my own experience, is not that full of integrity, and that there is a lot of political considerations about who lawyer they hire, who they get to give them their opinion. There are a lot of things we don't know, I would not have known, and I could say that for both sides, because when that happened to me, it was the People's Partnership was in office. When these things happened, this current situation, it's not the People's Partnership in office. So we don't know what's going on, but I do believe that there's something more that is going on behind the scenes, and for that reason, they were dogged in pursuing the matter. And I think to say that was not a gift, given the relationship and so on, and the amount of the deep discount of $480,000, which would affect his stamp duty, which others, including his wife and his daughter, did not enjoy. I think there was enough there, as we lawyers like to say, there was enough there that the judicial review was called for, and it has happened. Now, we just wait and see what happens, but that is the basis of it. What is the Prime Minister to do? Obviously, he's going to politicize it, and that's what he has to do. That, I mean, you can't blame him if he tries to do that. I mean, that's what he's going to do. End of the day, the court is going to make a determination. It might go all the way to the Privy Council. I don't know, but I'm not going to try to second guess.
Yeah.
All I'm going to say is that there was enough there for the judge to feel that they could go forward.
And I guess, again, I'll go back to what I said. As much as we might not get anything out of it, I appreciate when activists like Mr. Maraj do these actions and try to shed some light. Hopefully it's in good faith, but just the function of it should hopefully be beneficial to society. The question about gifts and public office holders, I do remember the Prime Minister of Canada, he got raked over the coals by his opposition for a very similar situation.
They say in the legislation something 5,000 is the limit.
Is the limit?
You see? And they're saying, how could you say that was on the gift?
That aspect I don't think is getting enough attention.
Right. And there's something called a blind trust, and which I wish if I had more sense at the time I eventually did it, is that, to protect yourself, set up a blind trust, have someone manage your affairs so no one can see that you're interfering or trying to...
Right, because you don't know what's
coming
in.
And hopefully, since it's a trust, hopefully they're acting in your interest, but within the law.
Folks, so no break today. We went straight through because we started late. We're going to open up the phone lines right now. If you have any questions with regards to this or anything else that was mentioned, of course... we do have a little bit of extra time. Well, not too much, I would say. But please don't wait to call in at the 11th hour. Try and call in up front, and so we don't have a backlog of calls. We lose some calls because too many people are trying to call in at the same time. And not only do we have people who can't get through on the phone line, we also if we get literally 2 calls on both lines at the same time, then the second call, who might just be 5 seconds later, might end up having to wait a whole 5 minutes and could get disconnected. So phone lines are open. In the meantime, and I'm always hesitant to go with in the meantime, because usually I don't have enough time to get anywhere. Maybe today will be different. A topic like this, I understand it's difficult because we don't necessarily want to speculate a conclusion, right?
No, we don't want to.
But I just found it interesting that there were other situations where there's still questions. This one, and could it be that to some extent, for better or worse, because you made this reference, that this is just one of the things that might be easier to pursue, to try to get a resolution on, maybe one way or the other, right? As opposed to something a bit more difficult that, you know, well, we could throw resources at it, but we potentially are not going to get anywhere. Is it that this case is a bit more maybe straightforward that to pursue, to try to get some answers?
Well, I do think, I mean, without any proof of it, but they do say that Mr. Balgobin is an activist and he is a member of the UNC. So, I mean, but that should not, the fact of the matter is whether he is or is not, or he's just a man in the street, if he has a good case and his lawyers argued a good case and the judges were convinced as to its merits, that's what's important. You just don't want to waste the court's time with being difficult or trying to score points, because at the end of the day, it does cost the taxpayer, because lawyers have to be hired, and there's a lot that goes on. And
it takes up the court's time.
And also in the institution itself, you know. And so that, but I do think in this case it was worthy of consideration, because I think there was enough for the judge to have made the call he made. You know, I think he had and as I said to you, I mentioned this only because, you see, it's like a circle. And, you know, when you look at this circle from their point of view, if you're on the other side of the fence, politically, certainly you might want to say, you said that we paid all this money for Viewfort. Remember the Viewfort? I told you the same made at Viewfort, that they paid so much money for land which had been commercially valued much less. You know, there's always going to be that ill will there. But at the end of the day, if we as citizens are going to benefit, as long as you are, as I have tried to be, clear about my sources, and that these sources are sources that are from legitimate sources, then I don't think we need to be persons who are willing to stand up and be counted. We can't always be afraid to take a position if it is going to be in the interest of our country and of our nation.
That's the other thing. Is it that we're just not willing, too many people are just not willing to get involved, not willing to voice an opinion? Because you voiced your thoughts on this, but there were no conclusions. It could conclude the way how it plays out, that, you know, the Prime Minister says nothing to see here, everything is fine, you know, but we go through the process to give that confirmation as opposed to just assuming, right? But there's a question with regards to participation and I guess you could say whistleblowing, even almost. The situation in Massey, where the person who was in charge of, I guess you could say, integrity or certain business practices, she herself now, I think she even potentially wrote the whistleblowing rules within that organization, and now, ironically, she is in that situation herself. Right. Is it that we just, you know, with our politics suppresses that? Because you pointed out to the fact that there's a section of the voting public who they don't necessarily want to publicly say anything. And we know that public servants, teachers, and so forth, they are not free to speak about, well, much of anything to do with the areas of society that they have direct experience in, that they could see the problems in because they're in those systems.
Right, and you know, you mentioned that case, and I sort of try to stay away from it because I also feel there's also much that we don't know. We don't know. And when we don't know, and people are afraid, I mean, understandably, because you come out and make a public statement, you have put yourself on record. When you put yourself on record, in any country, especially small societies like ours, where opportunities for persons at that level, because, you know, a person at her level, you know, I mean, whatever she's saying, whether it's right or wrong, I'm not in a position to come to a conclusion on it. That she did resign, and I thought I read, but I'm subject to being corrected, that she did resign, but they are negotiating a settlement. Now, my knowledge of employment law is that you would hardly, unless you have what they call a golden parachute clause in your contract, which says that for what specific reason the contract doesn't see itself right through, you will pay me X amount. Because you see, the higher you up on the ladder, we have a call.
The higher up in the ladder, the
harder to get a job.
As well as harder to get rid of you in some cases. But we have El Socorro on the line. Good morning, caller. You on the air?
Yes, morning, Sean.
Morning.
Ishara. Back on the crime situation.
Sure.
This terrible crime situation. I heard you when you mentioned about the detection rate and the conviction rate. Now, I did see on the newspaper the detection rate for 2022, 606 murders was 13%. Last year, 576 murders. I didn't see the detection rate.
I think
and
it's
out of that
about
detection rate, we don't know what is the conviction rate.
Yes.
But what is more grievous to me is I don't know whether the state, and I'm speaking very apolitically here, the damage that this murder rate, gang warfare is causing and affecting the country's international image. Let me just give a particular example. When the cricket team, the English cricket team was down here, and they were staying at the Hyatt, there was a murder outside the Hyatt or close to the Hyatt. And the UK, the government of the United Kingdom, issued a bulletin, crime bulletin, warning people about the danger of being near or going near to Trinity Mall, Grand Bazaar, and all of this kind of thing. Are we really seriously understanding the effect, the adversarial effect, the terrible effect that this runaway criminal activity is having on the country? I don't know, and I'm absolutely stupefied by, you know, this kind of lackadaisical understanding of how it is affecting our international image. Tourism, I mean, more Tobago, 13, 14 murders in Tobago, 99% probably gun-related. When are we really going to deal with this gang-related murders? It is the, I mean, out of the 605 murders, about 90% is gun-related. Right. So I am just, I mean, practically getting fed up. And as I said, this is an apolitical system, but I am severely worried about the international image that is being affected by in our country. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Can I say, though, it's not even an international image, because I think you mean, I would like to think when you say international image, it means that foreign direct investment. Because if I'm a foreign direct investor and I have choices to make, I'm certainly not going to put my money in a country where I'm going to pay an additional amount to have a private security firm working for me, or where persons are not, if I have a manufacturing business and I want to do 3 cycles, that persons are saying they're not willing to come out because they are free to come out.
Yeah.
So it's not just a question of our international image. I think all of us know what is the reason, and we know the cause, the root cause, and the fact that this has been out there, and we have been told from several years now that the gang numbers are increasing and increasing, and yet there seems to be no let up, and the number of guns and so on. I don't know how you could be confused or not unclear. It is clear to me that that those who are the ones to be able to manage it, either cannot, will not, or shall not manage it. That is the only conclusion one can come to.
The thing is, my critique on the police leadership, and I think a retired assistant commissioner of police, he basically called out police leadership. Retired senior superintendent Johnny Abraham, he was at the town hall meeting on Monday, and he called out police leadership. And when we have a situation where they can't do administrative functions with regards to promotions and managing vacations, because when you have the head of the Northern Division who's also on crime watch and he's supposed to take 2 years leave, you can't convince me he has that job for a reason. He apparently is qualified for that job, and for 2 years we have to get the next best guy because his leave was not managed.
Why do you say his best job? I mean, someone is the best if they're giving you results.
In theory,
it's only when you get results.
He was.
But that's theory.
But my point is, Karen, he was the first option, right? So let's just assume they got that right, because if they got it wrong, it just adds to the argument. But if they got that right, you choose him, you put him in the post.
I'm not saying they got it wrong.
Yeah. But you put him in the post, and now he's technically holding the job, but he's on vacation, and we have to get somebody else to do the job for 2 years.
Let me just say,
if they can't do administrative functions properly, do we expect crime
all
fighting
of
strategies?
those things about administrative, I think, in my respectful opinion, are used to distract from the real issues that everybody knows is the guns and drugs coming into the country and not being able to, because that's what the gangs, that's what the police tell you. The police tell you that what is the business of the gangs? The business of the gangs are guns and drugs, and human trafficking comes down the line. So if you know that is it, and yet there is this unrelenting increase and low detection, that idea about administration or that thing, we've been through all of that. Anaconda, we've been through all of that, and it hasn't worked for over 20 years. We all know where the root cause is. Whoever is in charge, are they willing to deal with it? That's the question.
You spoke about foreign direct investment being impacted by crime.
Absolutely.
Now on one hand, visitations, because tourism depends on visitations, right? So that also is being potentially impacted. Although people are coming off the cruise ships and going all over town, and they seem to be oblivious. And I hope that their protection could be maintained. I don't know how much confidence I have in that. But with foreign direct investment, one of the things I find it interesting, because you went there straight away. You didn't even need the call for the SOE. Right, to go there. If we have a state of emergency, wouldn't that further take a situation where foreign direct investment might be looking at us and saying, I don't think so, and make it even worse, because now it's a panic button, and if you're going to panic and push that button, why am I going to feel secure that I can make money stably in this environment?
And that is the thing, you know, in my respectful opinion, again, it's too much of the politics comes into the decision making. And when we talk about the cruise ships, I know that the minister, I see that appears to be making some greater efforts with tourism, and I applaud him for that. But the cruise ship, I already said it before, you know, those cruise ships really do not give you the real value for it. What they tell you is the persons who stay overnight. And I said that because I did a report for the BVI, and they did a study on that. And they have a problem also with water. So yes, the cruise ship, but are we hearing how much we get when the cruise ships land here?
Yes.
Are we getting data really to see how much we spend in order to entertain them?
Yes.
The net. But it is true. I have seen the tourists around the savannah, and they do seem to be comfortable. I do see that. But at the end of the day, and I guess in a way that helps to build up confidence in that Trinidad is safe. So from an optics point of view, that may be very helpful. But in terms of foreign direct investment and foreign exchange and so on, you really need the overnight tourists. You need the tourists to stay in the hotels, the Airbnbs, and so on. But that's a whole other story. So, and I don't know how, I know the minister gave his explanation about how much they're making off of each tourist, but I wish you'd tell me, give me gross, but tell me the net.
Exactly. Net means you account for costs. One of the things is that incident And there were multiple incidents on Ryson Road because there was the murder at the breakfast shop as well.
God.
And the thing is, when you think about direct investment and tourism, business accommodations, you're thinking about Hyatt, you're thinking about Radisson, you're thinking also about Hilton. But you have two of the big hotels in Port of Spain where businessmen will probably stay, right? More or less right next to two of the more recent murder scenes in the last couple of weeks. And I don't know what else to say. It made English news. It wasn't just a travel advisory caller. It made the English news.
Security alert.
Right?
It was a call of security.
No, but it also was in the English papers, the
but
UK
what I mean
Guardian.
is that, you know, they do it, they give you red and
Right.
They didn't do that. They call it a security alert. I just want to be, no, I just want, you know,
to
when
be
you
clear.
say, right, because when you say things, you just want to make sure that you don't want to, you know, discourage if the minister is trying to do a job with tourism and trying to make it better. They've got to deal with the crime, and that is something that's not his portfolio. But unless they get the crime under control, even just one last, even in I had Dr. Ram on my show, and he was saying, which is true, that in the energy sector, the employment numbers are not that great.
Right.
That is true, but the businesses that depend on the energy sector, the banks, the restaurants, all those things.
All of the supporting industries.
Right, that Marbella become a ghost town. So when you see that you have a fear of people running in their house at 6 o'clock in the evening, and what we're seeing in the country, and people are really we're living in a different world. Young people live on their phone, right? So the point about it is that unless the crime is really dealt with once and for all, in a way that we can then free up the country for all the possibilities that we have. And even the energy sector, that's another discussion. But give the minister, he seems to be trying, but I wonder about his figures on with all due respect to you, Minister, on the cruise ship, because those people don't come off and eat, they eat on the boat.
Exactly.
You know, and you know, these people people nowadays are well traveled. You can't get them a shack and they read made in China. Okay? So I don't know to what extent, even with the taxis, I think they make arrangements beforehand.
Yes,
where a lot of right. So a lot, you know, they don't have to. So it keeps a lot of taxi drivers who want to make $1 out of the business because they already have made the arrangements that we have our people. So what I'm saying is, and that was a criticism that was made about the BVI.
Okay.
So all I'm just saying is that don't try, the optics is good, because I did see it myself around the savannah by the thing, and the people seem to be very,
in Woodbrook
very
too,
relaxed.
I've seen them in Woodbrook.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will say it was during the day, but that is true, I will say that. But definitely, if we want to really deal foreign exchange, we've got to have overnight visitors, and we also have to do much more to develop our. Yes, Mr. Prime Minister, I know you're not so. I know it's not such a terrible word anymore to you, but we really have to look at diversification in a serious way. But crime is going to be our bugbear and our stumbling block.
Just your opinion, and as we close the show, of course, we've seen crime touch very lightly on Carnival. Somehow Carnival kind of, even with crime, it very rarely does crime hamper Carnival. We did have that one instance with the Japanese national who was unfortunately found murdered, but that seemed to be, you know, not a trend to basically say.
True, yes.
But there was more concerns this year than, let's say, last year or the year before, when we had record-breaking murder levels, right? Do you think that slowly but surely we need to be more concerned about things like crime touching on Carnival and maybe hampering that economic cash flow?
I think if you look at trends and look over the years, all police officers, their leave is suspended, so everybody has to be out.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I understand. Number one. Number two, maybe the same people who commit crime in the parties, or they're the party security. Well, so, you know, the fact of the matter is, I don't think you could use the Carnival period as a indicator of how you're solving crime, because traditionally, regardless of the government, they have found the formula for dealing with crime during that carnival.
Yeah.
That formula needs to go outside of that, but I suspect many of the persons who are involved in crime are too busy having a good time during
carnival. It's two things.
I
think, people on the streets.
I don't know.
Some of my friends who are a bit more worldly with their knowledge, they expect for when you have something like carnival, you might get more petty crime because people have to afford going to all of these fetes, and then, like you say, and then they go to the fetes, right?
To fet,
exactly. I just don't know if the strategy is flood the areas with manpower to just suppress everything. You can't maintain that over 12 months, right?
No, you cannot.
There are already concerns, and expressed by me and others on the show, that the TTPS manpower-wise at times is pushed too far.
Well, I don't think that is the reason for the crime. We already spoke about it on the show, but you are asking specifically for Carnival. If I have to look at the trends, I think we can say that during the Carnival period, partly because all police are brought out from leave and all the other things that they put in place, it clearly does appear to work. So in terms of the Carnival period, yes, Minister, you'll be happy to hear that I would say that that during the carnival period itself, I think that, and especially against the tourist people who are not Trinidadians, I do not and they know where not to go. By now, they should know where not to go. And they should go in groups, they should hire maxi taxis, and I'm sure a lot of things are put in place, but you can't sustain it, and it's not going to solve it. But for the carnival, I'm not, at this point in time, unduly worried that we will get a spike in the crime, except the usual, but I say the usual because it come now like usual now.
The everyday.
Yeah, it come like the everyday crime that we have amongst ourselves. But tourism part, I'm not that worried about it.
Folks, we have to end there. But just to point out an example of the everyday, right? There was apparently 8 wounded, 2 killed in a shooting that involved people who were allegedly dressed like police officers but weren't police officers. And I think they may or may not have been using high-powered rifles.
It's real bad,
And that's... 5 years ago, something like that, I think, would have been alarming. But now, it literally was Tuesday. It was just another Tuesday here in Sweet TNT. Folks, I want to thank our caller. I want to thank Karen for coming and talking about that, because I wanted to hear about that general topic there. I find it interesting what sometimes gets staying power within the media. Don't despair, but I will once again encourage people to be more involved, even though you feel that you don't want to be a victim, you don't want to stand out. The nail that stands up tends to be hammered down, but unfortunately, if we want things to improve, somebody has to be willing to put in the work and potentially take some risk. How much? It's hard to say. We just have to be able to live with ourselves on what we have, because this is where we live, literally. So make it a good day, as my co-host always says. Thank you, Karen, once again. We will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
WESN.
Boss lady, it's 2024 and you're still accepting drinks from random strangers? Nah! We're drinking smart to avoid any chance of date rape, so drink smart to be safe. This carnival, we love to drink, and party till the morning come. Whoa, but do it smart. You're drinking smart. But oh!
Drink, and party till the morning come. Yeah. What's wrong with us?
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Sight, Thursdays at 11:30 a.m. only on WESN, Content Capital.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through. Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
Join me, Dr. Nalini Kokaram, on What's Up Doc, where we discuss all your burning questions concerning health.
Trinidad and Tobago is among one of the highest risk group of patients that develop this form of genetic breast cancer.
What I'd like to take home from a short interview like this, screening. You must screen.
Because it's silent.
It's silent.
Yeah.
And because it's silent, you don't know it's there.
What's Up Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
People really want to know, what about me? Where do I fit?
Yes.
What is in the ride for me in terms of a better Trinidad and Tobago? And I'm pleased to shed some light on that.
The purpose of bail is to ensure your attendance at court. That's it. It is not punitive, it is not rehabilitative.
We the police officers, we are professional and we are here for whenever the survivor is ready to come forward.
We have the right to private and family life, the right to religious freedoms and beliefs and thoughts and expression. But these rights are not absolute. Certain rights can be limited.
The law is to govern the whole, it's for all of us in public.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing on it.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
My name is Carl Media, and I'm the founder and the host of Ever Increasing Voice Ministries. Join me every Saturday and Sunday on WESN, this powerful station, at 9 a.m. on Saturdays, 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. nightly. Also on Sundays, I'll be on at 7 a.m., 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. at night time. When you come here, we are getting people heavenly ready.
The newest book is here, Closer to the Church, the debut novel by author and former mayor Louis Lee Singh. Available at all the home store branches, Barataria, West Mall, Shogunas and C3 San Fernando. Paper-based bookshop 10 Nook Avenue, St. Anne's, WESN 30A Gattaca Street, Woodbrook. Metropolitan Bookshop, Ariapita Avenue, Woodbrook, and all RIK bookstores nationwide. Available online as paperback on Amazon.com and Kindle for e-readers. For more info, call 628-5835 or 389-6504. Also available from author Louis Lee Singh, I Used to Live in Heaven, Letters to My Granddaughters, and Local Government in Trinidad, Conspiracy Against the People.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers?
Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best. I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw.
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
Weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in-depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having this a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WESN,
the content capital.
We are WESN, the premier platform for Caribbean content. WESN, covering West, East, South, and North. WESN, we entertainment, sports, and news. WESN, available on Greendot 7, Amplia 118, Airlink 17, Bmobile 107, Digicel 21, ICNTT 105, and Flow 110. Connect with us at WESNCC or stream online at www.wesncc.com. WESN, your premier platform for Caribbean content.
On their news interest, but also on the type of presenting that they prefer. And they're going to do so with a unique mix of real but also AI-generated content. Before we go any further, let's take a peek into what actually that looks like.
Hello, and welcome to Channel One, a new way of consuming, reporting, and thinking about the news powered by artificial intelligence. Today, you'll witness AI-generated stories and headlines, captivating visuals, and data-driven insights.
Let's start with our reporters. You can hear us and see our lips moving, but no one was recorded saying what we're all saying. I'm powered by sophisticated systems behind the scenes, and I can speak in any language. Για παράδειγμα, αυτή τη στιγμή μιλάω στα ελληνικά. O kung pinapanood mo ako mula sa Maynila, marunong akong magsalita ng Filipino.
It's pretty impressive, isn't it?
It is.
All those different languages. Now, it's pretty real, but when you actually look closer, you can see that the lips aren't synchronized that well. The voice is still very choppy, and the producers actually admit today that they consider the technology to not be that good. But in 12 to 18 months, there's going to be a great achievement. Now, the goal, of course, is to make AI and humans absolutely indistinguishable. There will be real, but also AI-generated presenters that will be based, so avatars based on presenters that already exist who will be paid for the use of their images. The same goes for footage. So they're going to use real footage of events that actually happened and were filmed, but they're also going to be able to create AI-generated content to reevaluate and recreate events that have happened but haven't been filmed. And that's a huge game changer, because that means that you can bring that's a problem that we have as news channels. Sometimes something has happened, but we don't have the footage. And when it comes to TV, it can be difficult to bring that news. So that means that they're going to be able to create a lot of content, 500 to 1,000 segments a day. That's absolutely huge. One of the reasons why they want to do that is also to be able to personalize that news bulletin. Now, the producers want to reassure people. They say that some humans are still going to be part of the newsroom. It's only 11 people for the entire newsroom, one editor-in-chief, and mainly most people are going to be technicians. But they will have to keep on working with reporters on the ground, because there's one thing AI can't do, and that's to be able to collect raw information on the ground.
That's a really important aspect of journalism, Julia. Another really important aspect, though, is making sure actually something is true. We do a lot of that here at France 24, deciphering what's true and what's not. How will it work with this AI news channel?
Well, you know, the producers say that the information generated by the AI will be based on, I quote, a primary trusted sources. So that's actually quite interesting. We know that they're going to create a partnership with a news agency, and they're going to be doing whatever news channels are doing today, which is to operate on the assumption that whatever they're receiving from the news agency has already been verified. So working with those wires and that footage. But they also say they're going to be able to be unbiased. And that's really interesting too, because you have to understand that AI will reflect the editorial line you give it. So if you feed it, for instance, news sources that come from, let's say, mainstream dominant